So, Joe Deslauriers, welcome to Team Trek Podcast, man.
Thanks. Great to be here. Thanks for having us. You pronounced my name properly.
Was that good?
Yeah, it was good.
I've been going over it in my head. Deslauriers.
Deslauriers.
Right? It's such a cool name, and the audience at home, look at the spelling, and you'll understand why we're kind of beating it up. But anyway, very cool name. Where does that name hail from?
It's French. I think I did lineage for my name and everything, and it's French mostly. But I'm a mutt. I've got French, German, Irish, English. I think my fifth great grandfather was actually 100% Native American. So I've always kind of had an affinity for Native American, and I've just always loved the culture, but I never knew why. But you wouldn't think that just because your fifth great grandfather was Native American that you would feel that way. But for some reason, I've always had a calling or an affinity for Native American. So it's part of my culture. It's part of my heritage, and I kind of fit that into my journey as well. So it's an interesting thing that you learn when you do those ancestry type things, where you learn these things about yourself that you didn't know, but you had these feelings about, but you're like, oh, okay, well, that makes a little sense now.
It's plugged into your DNA.
It's plugged into your DNA. It literally is. It literally is. So
very cool. So where did you grow up? Did you grow up in the States, or were you born overseas?
No, my dad was a firefighter back in Massachusetts, and we lived there. I was born in Rhode Island, actually, a town called Woonsocket. All these, in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, there's all these Native American names of places, because that's where we all started pretty much up there in the East. But so a town called Bellingham, it's like a 300-plus-year-old town. There's buildings there from the 1700s that are the oldest church, I think, is from 17. I don't know. I couldn't tell you, but 1780s maybe.
Oh, wow.
So it's a pretty old town. Typical small town. I think when I was growing up, it was about 8,000 roughly as far as population. But it was your typical small New England town outside of Boston.
So what were you like growing up? Was that, I hear Boston, I hear New England. I'm thinking you guys are skating around on little ponds playing hockey. What were you doing? Oh yeah, absolutely. In the winter times, it was skating on ponds. I'm a big hockey guy, and just getting out there with your buddies. You shovel off the ice because there's snow on top of it, and you put your goals out there, and everybody just shows up with their skates on their shoulders, and everybody put sticks in the middle, and you throw them each way. And it was growing up. Well, now that it's cold here in Florida, my kids are experiencing a little bit more, but it's such a part of ingrained in my body, the seasons. Yeah. But yeah, it was a good upbringing. Small town, like I said, kind of a dead end town, really. But it's probably why I ended up in the military. But it's like I was saying, my dad was a firefighter in town. So. Any brothers and sisters?
I got a sister. She's about 4 years older than me.
Okay.
She lives down in South Florida now. And, we had a good relationship, but we had that age gap to where, and her being a girl as well.
It's a good thing for you. You're a freshman. All of your sister and all of her friends are seniors. You would think that would open some doors with popularity a little bit. But yeah. I was going to ask you before we get all the way to high school. So I'm thinking, so you're growing up, you're a hockey player.
Yeah.
Now, were you? Because again, a lot of the hockey moves I saw, because I wasn't a hockey player growing up. But it seemed like you had the kids that were fast and the kids that could fight.
Yeah.
Which were you on that?
I was not. So I was a very meager, I was skinny, maybe when we get to high school. But in high school, I was probably about 140 pounds soaking wet.
Okay.
And I never played hockey. I always wanted to play organized, but I never did. We just couldn't afford it. We didn't have a lot of money growing up. We were comfortable, a typical middle class family. But I didn't have all the cool clothes. I didn't get new clothes every year, or we went to Marshall's to get our clothes,
Sure.
and shoes. I didn't have, everything, the best of everything. But,
What kind of student were you?
I was probably middle of the pack. It was out of like I think we had 113 kids in our graduating class. Okay. And I was probably like 53rd. So
perfect.
A's, B's, C's, and a couple D's here and there, but school wasn't really my thing. I was probably a lazy student, but I look back now on it. I wish I would have done, had a little bit more, gusto for the classroom, but it was more the sports and the friends type things. So it,
was a typical Friday night, like junior, senior year, like for you?
I mean, I wasn't the partier. I was like a very good, like I was a goody two shoes, like I didn't smoke. I didn't really drink, even though I was around a large drinking culture with my family and stuff like that. And, my mom was pretty much a heavy drinker, probably an undiagnosed alcoholic, but, growing up around that, I kind of shied away from it. I think, with the parties and stuff, I wasn't very popular. I was a chameleon when it came to, hanging out with people. I could hang out with the jocks. I could hang out with the nerds, the trench coat mafia guys, back in the 90s. Because I graduated high school in 96, so, things were a little bit different back then. No cell phones and things like that. So,
yeah, they definitely were. And you mentioned being a chameleon. That seemed to be pretty normal. You could hang out with different groups. It wasn't like you were assigned to this one specific, and nowadays, and it kind of brings it up in my head because we talk about tearing down labels, right? In this culture, everybody's labeled and they fit into this nice little group. And when we were growing up, you just didn't. Like there were the groups that were labeled, but we were able to move in and out of them, no problem.
Yeah. I mean, I always wanted to be like the kid with all the clothes, and I was probably a jealous kid. I was super defensive. I don't know why I grew up so defensive. Like, I don't know if it was maybe from my mom or from my family or whatever, but I couldn't take razzing, or just what I thought, what we do now, like in the military, it was if we weren't picking on you, we didn't like you.
That's right.
And I took that to heart, I think, when I was a kid. And it was just like a big negative, looking back on it now, it was a big negative in my life. And I wish I could have not been that way when I was a kid. But, it did formulate my change throughout my life to become a stronger mental strong person. But I was probably jealous of all that stuff, but, wanting to be more popular. But I think I settled in and I enjoyed playing sports. I played football. That became my love. And I know you're a football guy too. So once I got into that group of jocks and everything, I found my niche, and it was amazing.
Yeah, football definitely changed my life. I had something happen my sophomore year, and if it wasn't for football, I probably would have went a different direction.
Yeah,
and we wouldn't be here right now. So, I have nothing but great things to say about high school sports, football, basketball. Okay, so what were your aspirations leaving high school?
Well, like I said, I played football, and my aspiration I wanted to go to college, and I know we couldn't afford it. But my mom tried as much as she could to help me out and pay, and I got loans and whatnot. So, but I didn't go to college that first fall. And I ended up, my coach kept me on as a wide receiver defensive back coach. So I worked at my high school, and I worked in my town I think I worked at a grocery store. Okay. Market basket. So it's market basket, but we say market basket. Market. But, so I worked in the town, or I worked there and, worked at my high school, and it was pretty rewarding in doing that. And my coach called me in, actually. He's like, did you, we hadn't really talked about it, because I was a decent football player, but there was other guys that got recruited and stuff like that. And he's like, you he's like, do you want me to recruit you? You want me to call like colleges and have them come look at you? And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So I ended up going to play. I went to college that next spring and played the next fall at a Division III school in Framingham, Massachusetts. It was Framingham State. It's FSU, Framingham State College, but it's Framingham State University now. And ended up going to play there for played about a year, and ended up getting injured. I tore my shoulder, my AC joint.
Okay, what were you playing? What position?
I was a defensive back. I went as a wide receiver, but man, you go from like high school to college. The quarterbacks, they've been there for 3-4 years or whatever. They're throwing the ball a lot harder. So my hands need to develop a little bit more. So they're like, why don't you go over the defense? Go over the defense.
Okay.
So I played defense, and I started making a name for myself in practice. I mean, it was like they ran the play away from me, and I ran across and just hammered this kid, like a 3-year player. And they're like, coaches, you just turn their heads like, who was that? And I was like, finally ended up earning myself a starting position after some kids got hurt. And then I got hurt myself. So it kind of all went down from there, but it led to where I'm at today. So ended up joining the military because college was not for me. I fell into I was taking, pain meds for my shoulder and drinking probably a bottle of Captain Morgan a night. So wasn't making it to school making it to class the next morning.
Yeah. And with college, it seems like a lot of kids fall into that, right? They get there, they get a little bit overwhelmed, and
you're on your own. I mean, there's nobody there to tell you what to do. You got to do your own laundry. You got to get yourself up and go to class. This wasn't my deal. I needed more structure. Yeah. Yeah. So
what did you know about the military? Did any of your family have a background in the military?
Yeah. My uncles were both in Vietnam. One was, I don't know if he always had like a handkerchief with a parachutist on it. And I think he was in the Air Force. Both of them were in the Air Force.
Okay.
But I don't know if he was like not combat control. Because I don't think they had that at the time. But I always remember him like that. And he said he jumped out of planes, I think. But
okay, yeah, that's so Vietnam.
Both of it, and then my uncle Arthur was my biggest. I would say he what's the word I'm looking for? Like mentor in that way.
Okay.
He was a reservist. Army Reserve in Rhode Island, and I used to spend a ton of time with him. But my grandfather was a Seabee in World War II, and he did the island hopping and built the airfields out in like all the different archipelagos, and that was pretty cool. Like I used to spend a lot. He was just like that grumpy, quiet old man, never spoke to anybody, but I'd go down there and we'd go into the basement and we would just do our thing. He'd build stuff. Everything he built was by hand.
Yeah.
He built him and my grandmother, my meme and Pepe, being French. They built their house with their own hands. Hardworking people, worked in mills. Textiles were a big industry up in Rhode Island and Massachusetts during that time. After World War II. So. But they were really hardworking people. And on the other hand, my other grandfather, my dad's dad, he owned a mill and owned a textile mill. My dad kind of grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth. It would come from two different kind of angles of culture and of life. They had a summer home, like they had their main home in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. But the mill finally went bankrupt. And they had to sell their house. They moved into the summer home, and that's where I grew up, in like the summer home in Massachusetts. Okay. But it was kind of like that grassroots kind of like built everything from hand, and that's what I kind of gravitated towards was him. And my other grandfather passed away before I was born, so I never got to know him.
Okay. Now, would your grandfather tell you stories at all from
Not at all.
Vietnam days, you remember the handkerchief and.
Yeah. My uncle. I mean, like back then, they never really talked about it.
Yeah.
They probably talked about more how they were treated when they came home. But excuse me, it was. Those discussions never really. I was too young, and we never really talked about that kind of stuff. So
you just knew you had a history, in your lineage, military lineage. So what were you thinking branch wise?
Oh, originally it was Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And I kind of had grown up. My dad has asthma, my sister has asthma, and I had like kind of an exercise induced asthma. It wasn't like I wouldn't have like attacks or anything, but when I started running hard and on like a football field and it's cold, everything would start to close up.
Okay.
But so when I spoke to the recruiter, once I left college, I came back home. Excuse me, and I was working at the grocery store, and it was not where I wanted to go, but had no direction whatsoever of what I was going to do. And I had a call to service, I think in my heart, to serve my country. But originally I wanted to be a firefighter. This is what I grew up around. Yeah. I'd be at the firehouse all the time, playing on the trucks. That was my life, either that or a police officer. But I knew I wanted to serve and be part of something bigger. But so back to, I know kind of went around in a circle, but the Marine Corps called and we went through the whole list about everything. And he's like, "Oh, do you have asthma?" And I was like, "Yeah, kind of." And he's like, "Well, all right, let's just stop here. This kind of disqualifies you from the Marine Corps, or actually from service in general." And he goes, just before he hung up the phone, he goes, "So if you want to serve in the military, just be aware that you probably don't have asthma." And
right.
So I think it was not even like 5 or 10 minutes later, because they're always in the same offices, and he probably knocked on the thing and was like, "Hey, I got a hot one for you,
ready to go."
Ready to go. So the Air Force called, and my uncles were in the Air Force, like I said, and so and during that came to that question. Nope, I didn't have asthma. So
right, you learned your lesson.
I learned my lesson on that one because I knew I wanted to do it. I wanted to get out of my town. My dad had come into work one day to shop at the grocery store, and the look on his face, it was like disappointment. And I knew I had failed at college, and you start at that age, you start learning about failure. In sports, you learn you do something wrong, or maybe you're not good enough to play the sport, or you're not good at that position. You're like, okay, that's failure.
Sure,
failure is a big driving force in life, right?
Absolutely is.
So the look on his face of disappointment, it really drove me to want, and I started to seek out being in the military. And that's when the recruiter started to call me, because I took the ASVAB in 11th grade, as a backup. And it turned out to be my primary life and job. So it was, I think that was when I saw my dad's face. I think that was pretty much the thing that said, "No, that's it. I got to do something."
So when you tell that story, it was just the way he looked at you with you working at the grocery store?
Yeah.
Was there a conversation that happened?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a conversation. I'm there stocking shelves, and he just walks in, and and he would never say anything like that, like, "Hey, you're disappointing me," because it was like a pat on the back when I was 18. It was just like, there you go. Get on with your life. What are you going to do? Like, we never talked about it. My dad never gave me any words of wisdom. Love the guy. Great guy.
Yeah.
Big man in town. Kind of the unofficial mayor of the town. But
firefighters, first responders, those guys they're gold.
Yeah.
They're gold.
Yeah. So. Like everybody's like, "Oh, your dad came and helped out my grandmother, or, brought her to the hospital in the ambulance," but yeah,
we talked. I think my mom and I talked about a lot more stuff as far as like meaning of life type things, and she taught me to be a man more than my dad ever did. I learned from how to be a man from watching my father, sure. But good or bad, probably learned from more of the things that he did wrong. Again, that failure aspect.
Yeah.
He ended up. It was probably about 17. I came home one day and I walked in and my parents were in the kitchen talking. And I saw I was a very perceptive child, I think. I saw the look on his face of just not despair, but of failure and of like he had done something wrong. And he did. He had cheated on my mom. And I came in on that conversation, and it was devastating to me, I think, at that point. So, they never divorced. They stayed together. They, kept to their vows. But again, I think seeing my family kind of fall apart, that was another reason why I wanted to house-fart my life there in Massachusetts.
Yeah, and you probably feeling your clock ticking as well. But
yeah.
I asked that question because it doesn't always have to be words, right? Sometimes it's just a look. I mean, we feel that, and when you feel like your parents are disappointed in you, it can absolutely, it carries a lot of weight for a lot of kids. And I know for me, it always did too. If I felt like, my dad was disappointed in something I did, that was where I like, dude, can you just hit me? Can you just spank me or something? Don't give me that disappointment.
Yeah.
It was horrible, right? So, okay, well, I can definitely understand.
And I had such a lack of discipline, I think, in my house. I wasn't ever grounded. I was spanked. When I'd mouth off to my mom, my dad would get up and just, take care of business. But
almost like a check of the block, like that's a line you do not cross.
Yep. But I was a proverbial line crosser, I think, and for some reason I love to push his buttons, but
yeah, I mean, without trying to deep dive any of that, whether, is attention based or, firefighters, and all of them have a different schedule, but sometimes they're 24 on, 48 off. Sometimes they're 48 on, 96 off or whatever. And those schedules, they have their second family there at the station that they live with the time. Yep. And there's probably a bit of jealousy, as a kid.
Yeah. No, because he was gone for 4 days at a time because they would work 4 days on, 4 days off. And then he had a second job as well. But we spent a lot of time together. Like there was a lot of love there, I still kiss him, on the lips to this day. It was just, there was definitely love felt, but there was just a lack of that father-son relationship that we didn't have that I really wanted, looking at some other fathers that were more involved in their life, but I understand everything now. We just spoke on the phone for 3 hours the other night, and we talked about all kinds of stuff. Just kind of laid it on the table and, had that man-to-man conversation that I probably always longed for, but just never got, So it's life is always a constant healing.
Absolutely. And it's constant learning.
Constant learning. I mean, because you look at your parents, you look at them as, they're everything and they're your world. And when that, kind of falls apart, or you get disappointed by like him, having a girlfriend and, breaking up the family and, cheating on my mother. So, that was another thing I learned not to do, was to be, loyal and faithful to women, and friends and stuff like that. But
yeah, and I've said this before, but it's, we kind of got to give our parents some grace, because how were they raised, right? Like, how did they learn to be like that, right?
Correct.
Somehow they learned it. It's generally a learned behavior, right? So, I give mine a lot of grace. I think that they did a great job. I'm right here, right? I learned whatever I learned.
Sorry. I forgot to turn that off.
That is That is an excellent ringtone.
It's when the Boston Bruins score a goal.
That is awesome.
I made up. Sorry.
No worries.
No.
But yeah, you know, we tend to not blame, but it's like this came from somewhere, and I think we forget how young we are as like America.
Yeah.
Right. We're like the 5th generation, maybe 6th generation.
Yeah.
You talked about, 6 generations ago, your family was 100%, Native American. And here we are 6 generations later, and this is what we've learned. This is just where we're at.
Yeah.
And we never stop learning, and we're going to continue to fail probably till the day we die. I wonder if failure, I don't think death is failure. Like, I think death is where we actually, like, it's like, cool, we got it right. Like, we get to go home finally, right?
Yeah.
But we fell right up until that point.
Yeah.
So we're constantly learning, man. So I appreciate that even to this day, you're still giving that grace to your dad, right?
Yeah.
Giving it back, saying, hey, man, I'll talk to you for 3 hours. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think went wrong and how I wish I would have handled things. Not that I'm mad about it now, but I think having those conversations, sometimes it opens old wounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes they feel like you're pouring some salt in there. I know when I had a conversation similar with my old man, I don't think he quite saw it the way that I did.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that does make sense. But like they're just people. And as you become an adult, you realize, they go through the same thing. We're going through the same thing that they did, as parents.
Yeah. They're like 20 years older than us.
Right.
20, 30 years older.
It just takes a lifetime to understand, that they just were living their lives and doing what they thought was right at the time. And, so you don't fault them for what mistakes they made. And my mom passed away in 20 from stage 4 lung cancer. She was a heavy smoker. So,
how old was she?
She was 69. She almost made it to 70, but
our mom sounded really similar. Mine made it to 70.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were so close, her and I. We would cuss at each other, talk. I mean, it was an open book. Like I learned to be an open book from her because, I've learned that keeping things inside and keeping things suppressed, which I did as a child, was very detrimental to your psyche. And, that's where I'm like, you can ask me anything, and this is a good spot for it, but I will tell you just about anything almost to a fault, but,
transparency.
I'm transparent. I mean, you gotta, I've just learned that you can't hide stuff from people and just being, like you said, transparent.
Well, transparency, authenticity, right? These are huge, right? We tend to wear masks all the time. Yeah. We're afraid to be judged, and that's what it is. So live in transparency, authenticity, and you're going to be judged.
Yeah. What I've learned now is that when people judge me, I don't care. I don't, I surround myself with positivity, positivity with positive people, strong people. I keep the drama as much out of my life as possible because I grew up in drama and I just don't, anytime it kicks up, I'm like, I retract back from it.
I'll be over here.
Yeah, I'll be over here. I want to keep my positive life as much as I can over here, because you start getting that negativity and the demons start coming in and, I'll get depressed. Yeah. And it's not worth it. It's not worth it to have negativity around you in your life.
Especially when when you have enough control over your emotion to where you can see it coming, you can feel it coming. You're in charge of it. You decide how you're going to feel about these things. And you decide, to make the smart decision. I think too often we get caught up in the drama and it's just unneeded, right?
Yeah. I just feel at this point in my life, I just know myself so well. And then I know what things are going to make me happy and make me, sad or want to tear something apart, and that's, the fight or flight with me still runs deep. And that's, I think, one of the things I deal with the most, I think, is my adrenaline and my fight or flight are things that, will not make me go off the handle, but just give me that that visceral feeling of that fire burning in my chest.
Oh yeah, I know that. I know that feeling. Now, was it when you joined the Air Force, right? Because we're going to go back to that initial Air Force recruiter's pitch, and really figure out why how that went down. So, did you have that kind of? Because I know you said you were skinny, 140 pound. Were you tall and lanky?
Yeah, I was. I think by then I was probably reached my height. I was 6'1".
Okay.
6'1", but I had gained about 30 pounds.
So 170.
Yeah, 170.
6'1", and pretty fiery by that point.
Yeah, I mean, again, not knowing what I wanted to do. I knew, like I said, being a firefighter, and I joined for that reason. I was going to go be a firefighter for 4 or 6 years, come back. And then, be a firefighter. I wanted to do something better than what my dad did.
That was your intent then with joining the Air Force?
Correct.
You were going to be a firefighter in the Air What?
Yes.
Okay. Can you, let's go from there, right? Tell me about that pitch, the intent, and then tell me what happened with it. Where was basic training for you?
So yeah, we'll kind of go back to the recruiter thing, and I'll get to that. But how I ended up getting the EOD to explosive ordnance disposal, I went in to be a firefighter, and I went to MEPS in Boston, and they're like, well, we don't have any slots open for that. Well, we got this. This is kind of, similar to, it's a, kind of like an emergency service, I guess, if you will. And they showed me the syllabus. I read it, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is pretty cool. Let's do it. Plus we got like a $3,000 bonus for signing up for 6 years. So I was like, oh, money, that's good, And it, it had some prestige to it, and I knew about the bomb squad. Everybody knows about the bomb squad.
Right.
So
you've heard of SWAT, you've heard of the bomb squad. You're a firefighter at heart. You know the emergency services.
Yeah, it was a service, and like they sold it to me, and I probably jumped in with both feet, not knowing exactly what it was.
Well, and so what year is this?
This is 1998.
So this was pre-Boston City Marathon?
Oh, yeah, way before.
By 10 years, probably, right?
Well, yeah.
Around 08, I think.
Boston bombing was 13.
13, okay. Yeah. So 15 years before that. Had there been many, pipe bombings, anything that you had heard of around Boston or New York?
We lived in a big Irish area, so I knew about,
fireworks,
the IRA, and just, that war.
Okay.
But yeah, other than watching movies, was it Blown Away? I think Blown Away was, that was a movie about a bomber. He was an Irish, and he was in the IRA. Well, and it took place in Boston.
And then what was the Speed, right, with Keanu Reeves?
Speed with Keanu Reeves.
So there were some movies out there.
There was some exposure that I knew exactly what I was kind of getting into, but not exactly.
Not exactly.
Not exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of understand this picture because you're reading through what explosive ordnance disposal, basically what that stands for.
Yep.
But what are the practical terms? You're putting it to movies. Okay, Joe Pesci, or not Joe Pesci. Anyway.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But it ends up being you're an explosive janitor, basically. And, just using explosives to make things go away, whether it's in a battlefield or whether it's on a range where, because we have a high dud rate for U.S. ordnance.
Yeah.
So all the bombing ranges out west and, basically the actual German term or the German word for EOD is basically translates to explosive janitor.
Explosive janitor.
Explosive janitor.
And it makes the most sense. You're going to go clean up the duds.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah. Basic training was at Lackland. So first time I flew on an airplane was going to Lackland, Texas.
So you never left your immediate area?
No, I had never left. Well, the only place I had ever left New England, Connecticut or, that area. I never left New England up until I was like 17. I went to New Jersey and New York, but
just to go fight or?
No, it was, no, like I said, I was not a fighter. I was a lover at that point.
So you were chasing a girlfriend?
I had some girlfriends back then, I had the high school girlfriend but no, I pretty much at, around that age, I didn't have like a steady girlfriend or anything, but I went with a buddy. We went and worked at this sports spectacular I met Muhammad Ali, actually. So we worked at this, like a sports spectacular where people go get autographs.
Okay.
And like Troy Aikman wasn't there. A bunch of Cowboys were there at the time. Emmett Smith, got to meet Emmett Smith.
Nice.
So
that would have been around the time when the Cowboys were good.
Yeah, they were really good. Michael Irvin was there, and so we were in the back, and we got to. No, actually, Troy Aikman was there. He was kind of a jerk, but it was a good experience. But anyway, so I had never left New England, and the Northeast until I got on that airplane and left. My life behind me, my drama life, I guess, with my parents, it was a lot of drama and arguing and things like that. So,
now where's Lackland for our guests that don't know?
The San Antonio area. Okay. And, it was definitely a culture shock as far as going, you get on the bus after there and everything is still kind of normal until you step off the bus. And I think I asked a TI or something like that. I was like, where are we going? Which light? And he starts getting into me. And I was like, oh, this is real. It just started, because you never know when it's going to start.
Yeah.
And
we knew they kicked in the door. So it was, our buses pulled up. We were in cattle trucks. Did they have the cattle trucks in the airport?
No, it was like those white,
you guys had like 15
Bluebird
passenger vans.
Yeah, they picked us up in limos.
Yeah, you guys were in the Air Force, I forget. We had cattle trucks, right? They moved us around like cattle.
Yeah.
And we knew it was real because the drill sergeant kicked in the door and just started grabbing privates and throwing them, right, in their bags. We were aware.
It becomes aware very quickly what and you're like, okay, all right, time to lock it up.
Yeah, they call it shark attack, and it went away for a long time. I am happy to hear they brought it back because it's important.
Yeah,
it's a very important part of that chaos that 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old has to face for the first time in their life when it's just very important. So stop complaining about it. It needs to happen. Anyway.
Well, and everybody thinks about the Air Force. Oh, do you fly planes? No, it's not, there's a lot more to the Air Force than just officers flying planes. There's
like bomb janitors.
Right? And it's basic training was like a huge wake up. And the Air Force I think it was 8 weeks at the time.
Yeah.
And it's the typical, there's no beating, there's no hitting, or it was all yelling. We had a piece of paper in our pocket when you got in trouble. Like you give them a piece of paper and they would write you up, and then you have to go and talk to like your TI in the office or something. Like if you got 2 of those and you get rolled back, and you just wanted to stay on par. You didn't want to get rolled back,
I'd never heard that before, and I don't know if I've ever really talked to anyone that's given that. As far as your corrections, they were written corrections.
Written corrections. They yell at you, of course.
Of course, but you got to go stand on the carpet, and you basically got to face that face to face. It was no group punishment. Was there a lot of group punishment?
Oh, no, there was a lot of group punishment.
Okay.
Yeah, we did bed drills and stuff like that where, because we couldn't get up in time and make your bed. Everybody was just, you're
not going to make it. It's a standard that nobody can make. It's impossible.
There's some knuckleheads there. There was like that, ended up not making it through, but people can't make a bed. You got 18-year-olds coming from where their mom did everything for them. Wash their laundry, put it on the bed for them. Now you got to make your own bed, and you have to make it to, the hospital coroner standard. It's got to be, you have these rules now.
Right.
And I kind of took that with open arms because I never really had that.
You needed that structure.
I needed that structure. And, it's a game, it's a total game. And you learn that you just learn what to do, and you're also learning Air Force history, Air Force structure, rank, all that stuff. And, the chain of command, it's always a big thing to learn the chain of command. You step outside that, you're going to get your ass reamed.
Yeah. So
it's just all that stuff that, is very, very different and an awakening per se when you get there. They shave your head, they do that for us. And it's just, I found it exciting.
As you talk through it, it provides you that structure for the people that will embrace it. It's absolutely a great thing.
Yeah,
it's teaching, because they're teaching you the answers. They're giving you the answers before they're testing you on it. But it's showing you that, you know, there's a certain set of rules that matter, because what happens when you go to combat, right? What we're going to get to later is everything matters. Like every single thing matters. And you can't just instill that when we're in combat. It's gotta be, you know, from the beginning. And unfortunately, we have guys that just don't even make it out of basic training because those standards, it's just, they just don't have it in them. They just don't want to do it.
No,
it's not that they can, it's just they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So you kind of got to embrace that. So
yeah, I mean, like we didn't have the term "embrace the suck" back then.
Yeah.
That came much later, but you started to learn, like you chose to be there. I chose to sign the dotted line.
That's right.
And I wanted to be there. And obviously the things that were going on were craziness and crappy at the time, but it was, you always had the end goal. You know, you had, you know, when I got to EOD school, it was the badge. Everybody wanted the crab. Right. That was your end goal, and to be an EOD tech. So it was just what you strove for and what you wanted to do. Like again, I chose to be there and I wanted it. I wasn't going to fail. Let's go back to failure. I wasn't going to fail at this.
Right.
Because it was something I really, really wanted to do. And, you know, serve my country, travel the world, blah, blah, blah. You know, those typical things that people say when they join the military. But
yeah, it's opportunities.
Opportunities, right? And
we're opportunists.
Yeah. So
first duty station. So basic training, 8 weeks. You said it was good time.
Yep. Then you go to a prelim. We went to a prelim course, which was over at Medina, which was an annex of Lackland.
Okay.
Medina. It was just called Medina Annex.
So you're still out in Texas.
You're still out in Texas, and you go through a 2-week prelim course. It's basically a crash course in EOD. You put on a bomb suit. You walk around. They expose you to, you know, your first time touching C4, you know, in a blasting cap. And you're holding this and you're like, okay, this could just blow up and kill me right now. Some guys didn't like that. And, you know, they left. They chose to go do something else.
Yeah.
But we also went through the process of getting a top secret clearance. So I didn't want to lose that either, because I knew that was going to be important down the road in my career. So, because in EOD, we needed a top secret clearance for the things that we ended up doing later, which I had no idea that we did, you know, VIPs, a very important person working for the Secret Service.
Okay.
And there's a lot of aspects within EOD that people don't know about. But so EOD, like, I knew they didn't want to pass me. Because I was too young. They didn't think I had the right stuff, I guess. But I pleaded, and, you know, they passed me. So I left Medina, ended up coming right here to Eglin Air Force Base I think that was like in April in school. I graduated school in November. So it was, I don't know, like, how many months is that? 5-6 months of school, roughly. But I mean, that's where you start learning all the tools and methods of EOD. And, you know, it was something I really wanted to do, and started to love it and learn. We learned about Murphy. You know, right off the bat,
he shows up a lot.
He shows up a lot. And we had, in that first 2-week school, they had, you know, I'm Catholic, you know, try not to idol worship, you know, and things like that. We had a little Murphy doll. And we would give little things to Murphy to keep him happy, because, you know, keep him occupied, because whatever can and will go wrong, you know.
That's right.
So
what was it, and when did it happen that you fell in love with EOD? Because, you know, getting the brief, it's like, that sounds pretty cool. I can get on board with that. I'm still going to be a firefighter when things are said and done.
I think it was the people. Like, it's always the people for me, and because that makes or breaks a whole situation. Being a football player, you know, the team aspect. You know, you had teammates you hated, you had teammates you loved. Same thing in the military, you know. And but I found, actually, being an Air Force guy, you know, we were pipelined into EOD school, And I think the Army was pipelining too. So they had privates there, mostly the Marine Corps and the Navy. And the Navy was pipelining guys too. So, but the Marine Corps, because it's a combined school.
Yeah.
So there's Navy, Army, Air Force, and Marine Corps. And you got Marine Corps staff sergeants and sergeants there. They've been in the military for 4 or 5 years. So those guys were scary to me because they were real military guys at that point. So in school, it was, you had discipline from not only your instructors, but you had discipline from your peers as well.
Okay.
Which was something I had never experienced, because we all had the goal to make it and graduate and get your crab. But I learned real quick to just keep your mouth shut, do what you needed to do, and work hard. And I loved studying bombs and missiles and learning the ins and outs of bombs and missiles, and eventually nukes. We learned nukes. The school was still split at that point. So we went up to Indian Head, Maryland, up in Maryland. It's like this small little school or a little naval station. But school was just really interesting. I loved it. I loved learning all the intricacies of the munitions, and then you get into the IED part of it, the improvised explosive device part of it, which back then it wasn't really as prominent, because it was just like some crazy guy in Washington State built some bombs in his cabin,
right?
And mailed bombs, or old Ted Kaczynski. But that was my extent of IEDs, learning about that.
So what year is this?
Still 98.
So this is before GWAT. This is before we've seen much of any kind of improvised explosive. Like you said, to that point, it had been mostly like ammonium, like manure and stuff, right?
Yeah, like ammonium nitrate, the fertilizer, like ANFO, and just even gunpowder. People putting gunpowder in a pipe bomb.
Yeah, pipe bombs. There you go.
Pipe bombs. And that was the extent of it. Some crazy lunatic, putting pipes in mailboxes and blowing them up.
Right.
Or some disgruntled guy. That was what we basically were trained on. Some stuff from overseas. There was a lot of and actually in Germany and stuff. There was a lot of IEDs or guys trying to blow themselves up or take other people with them, and just a lot of stuff that lose my train of thought here.
Because thinking back to like Mogadishu, what was going on in the Middle East, there wasn't. RPGs, but they weren't rigging them to explode, right? They were
just using them, in their normal form.
Yeah. So really curious, like, because obviously things have changed considerably.
Oh, yeah.
We've advanced a lot and developed a lot from there. But yeah, I'm just really curious as to what you were learning about IEDs back then. Comparatively,
yeah, it was like coffee cans with batteries on them, and it was small little just things that were whatever intel that they have had from bombers over the years, and some stuff from the Middle East and things like that, but
a lot of mines mostly though, right?
Yeah, a lot of mines,
landmines
and stuff like that. That's there's like 4 core aspects of EOD, and it's conventional munitions, chemical munitions, chemical bio, IEDs, and then the nuclear and radiological bombs, like dirty bombs and stuff like that. So
sure, and then going back to your original statement that you're a bomb janitor, meaning more often than not, if I shoot an ordnance and it fails to explode, I call you, you go out and you blow it up.
And
right. It's so, okay. So you're graduating, and what was your first duty station once you finished EOD school?
Spangdahlem, Germany.
Okay. And who are you working with over? Because EOD, you guys, you have the luxury of getting it. I say it's luxuries. You have the luxury of getting attached to anybody and everybody.
Yeah, and It was, so being in the Air Force, everything's aircraft. And basically any of the munitions that were on the aircraft, the guns, bombs, the missiles, which turned out to be something that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
But you learn about the aircraft as well. Cause like if there's a hung bomb that armed itself on the plane, it's still stuck on the plane.
Yeah.
You have to go and shut down the aircraft because they evacuate the pilots, they evacuate everybody. You have to go and learn how to shut down the aircraft. So we'd learn how to like jump in the seat of the aircraft, shut the main power down, shut the electronics down, and do all that kind of stuff. So we knew the ins and outs of, at there we had A-10s, F-16s, F-15s. So nice. Working around the aircraft on the flight line was awesome.
So you went from high school, had never been on an airplane. Now you're in another country. You just flew over, a couple of oceans there.
Yeah. And
Smengdalem, Germany.
Yeah.
Culture shock?
It really was. I mean, everybody looks the same. It's not like going to an Asian or African country where everybody looks different. But it was very, very different. A lot of the Germans spoke English, which was helpful. But, you spend a lot of, early on as an airman, you spend a lot of time on base because, you're in the barracks. You don't live off base just yet. They keep you, close until they figure out you can, go swim on your own.
And you got to keep a handle.
You got to keep a handle on you because, again, there's a lot of guys that still haven't really developed the life skills it takes to take care of themselves.
Well, we talk about culture shocks. You grew up in Boston.
Yeah.
Were you driving a car? Did you have a driver's license?
Yeah. You end up getting like a USAFE driver's license.
Well, I'm talking about like in high school, right?
Oh, in high school, yeah. I didn't. So I was 16 going into my senior year. So I didn't drive yet. Because in Massachusetts, you can't get your license until you're, I think, 18.
Well, a lot of the city kids, they never got a driver's license, right?
No,
so I didn't notice this until I was in the military. Because where I grew up, I got my license as soon as I could, and I was gone. I'm never coming home again.
Yeah.
But it seemed like a lot of kids in basic training, I'm starting to realize they don't have driver's license. You get into your first duty station, and you're being told, "Hey, go get your driver's license. Go take your driver's test so you can drive military equipment." You're getting trained off on basically how to shut down aircraft, all this other stuff. And I was wondering, because now you're in Germany, Autobahn. There's a lot of things. It's not that they're trying to keep you on a leash so much. It's just that culture. Now you take somebody that grew up in a city, maybe they didn't grow up driving,
never driven before,
and now they're on the Autobahn.
Yeah,
it's just
So I did have my driver's license, and then you have to learn all the signs that are in German when you get your driver's license with that. But
not an easy test. By the way.
No, it's not an easy.
Studying.
No, I think I failed the first one, but it's the roads are just it's insane. Like the switchbacks, the old Roman roads, and it was fun driving. Great driving. I wish I had a motorcycle when I was over there. I should have done that because that would have been so fun. But I had I had a VW Golf, like a 1986 VW Golf. It was a little 4-speed. Perfect. And man, it was so fun to drive there. But yeah, it's the culture shock wise. Love the food. Experiencing different food and the beer, of course.
Sure.
And we could drink over there because the drinking age was 18, so we were able to drink. Which was nice. I had just turned 19 though. My birthday's in November and I got there in December. And, so it was definitely an experience. And one of the guys that I graduated EOD school with went with me, which was really unheard of to get stationed with another airman that you went to school with at your first duty station, especially overseas.
Yeah.
But so we were, I had somebody there I knew and was friends with, so that was really good.
Yeah, that's huge. When I know a lot of the guys and gals, when they're joining the military, they used to offer that program, right? Where if you join with your buddy, you guys will go to basic training together and then go to your first duty station together.
Yeah.
Which, when you're leaving everything and everyone that you know, just having one friend with you would be huge.
Huge.
So yeah, that's cool.
Well, it's actually we can cuss and stuff and say crazy shit. All right.
It's your story.
So I get off the plane there, and one of the sergeants and the other airmen pick us up. And of course you're kind of nervous. You don't know what the hell's going on. And we're walking back to the truck, and one of the guys looks at me before we get in the truck. And he's like, "Did you ever suck a dick?" I was like, "No." He's like, "You will." And I was like, "Oh fuck, what did I get myself into?"
Shit,
I'm like, "What the fuck?" And this guy was this is a guy that ended up breaking me down and turning me into a man. You know, you think basic training does that, but this guy Cliff Weta, he's my buddy. He just passed away, actually, heavy drinker.
Sorry to hear that.
No, I just lost him last year, and he dealt with a lot of issues from the military, from deployments, and he fought and struggled a long time. I wouldn't call it a suicide, but it was pretty much, he kind of probably drank himself to death. But unfortunately, because you feel so bad, you want to be his friend and help him out. But anyways, so he became basically my best friend while I was there, and he taught me so much. Again, the picking on, if I'm not picking on you, we don't like you.
That's right.
So he picked on me so much, and I was so defensive. And there was just one day the winds changed, and I was like, fuck this, I'm not taking this shit anymore. And I fought back, and I snapped right there. Not, crazy snapped, but I was just like, you know what? I am a strong person. I don't need to take this crap. And he really, really, I always attribute him to doing that for me. And I was always eternally grateful, because it just changed my whole aspect of life.
Took the regulator off a little bit. Let it breathe.
Depussified me and turned me into a man, almost right there. Nice. And I always attribute him to that. But we had when we got there, we had a lot of old school guys, guys from the 80s and, Cold War guys.
Oh, yeah.
That lived through, we had tanks there.
Yeah.
They used to use tanks to plow the airfields if they got bombed by, probably Russia, I think was the big opponent at the time. So there was just a lot of things within that, the U.S. Air Forces in Europe theater that were, had to abide by NATO rules and everything like that. If they moved a tank, you had to notify Russia, just because they wanted to make sure that it was not a movement in against them.
Right. Wow.
But it was, coming in, at the end of the Cold War era, and, the only thing we had experienced at that time was probably Gulf War I.
Yeah.
But, that was 91, 92-ish.
Yeah. 93, 94 was Mogadishu. Yeah.
So there was, we did war wasn't really a big thing. It was just peacetime necessarily, and
conflict.
There was just the fall of the Iron Curtain. The Russians were still technically, the bad guy, and they were always, we always kept an eye on them. But, you always had that feeling. I didn't really get that feeling until I went to Korea after that, where you have a madman living, across this line that wants to, destroy and take over South Korea. You still had that. You go up to the DMZ, and there's it's a palpable feeling of there's an enemy over there. When you see your counterpart with a rifle on the other side of this line, you're like, holy shit, this is real.
Yeah. You
didn't really get that feeling because you never really saw your adversary when you're in Europe. But so, again, there was nothing we supported. We went to Kuwait. I deployed to Kuwait for, I think it was my first deployment or second deployment for Operation Southern Watch.
Okay. What year was that?
That was probably maybe around 99, somewhere around there. Because we had Operation Allied Force again with Kosovo.
Yeah.
I deployed to Italy for that. That was a rough one. We were in a resort while the A-10s were going over and bombing Milosevic and stuff. So that was the first time I actually saw a bomb, or bombs, real bombs, being loaded on an aircraft and flying over and dropping them,
right,
coming back. It was like, oh man, somebody's on the other side of those things. That was kind of a realization that, this is real. Even though it was across the Adriatic Sea.
You guys were down in Pisa, right?
We were actually down at a place called Gioia de Colle. It was like near Bari, on the heel of Italy.
Okay.
Down on the boot, on the heel. Beautiful area. I mean, it was like a British resort, like a British summer resort area where a lot of Brits would come down. But I mean, we were on the beach.
Yeah, I mean, it made sense that's where everyone was flying in from.
Yeah,
I mean,
because Italy opened up their bases for us to use, and got the exposure to a lot of foreign aircraft, and some of the Brits were there. We got exposure to like the Harrier jump jet. That was pretty cool, and learning their ordnance and things, and it was just like and EOD is just a constant learning. I mean, and the same thing I'm sure with you experienced in ODA and Green Berets. It's a constant learning experience being in the military.
Yeah.
And just the exposure that I got was just amazing. It was the travel the world thing, and that I was experiencing that instantly, because you had guys that got stationed. It was guys at Herbert Field that were there for 14, 15 years, never went anywhere.
It seems like you have to try hard to make that happen, right? Because the Air Force, I mean, you have all the opportunities in the world.
Yeah.
Your first duty station is Spengala, Germany.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, by 99, you're hanging out in Italy.
Yeah. No.
Most people in this country will never make it to Germany and Italy in their lifetime, right?
Yeah.
But you join the military, you go out and you serve your country, and you can get. It's so beneficial, man. I love the military.
And they gave us time off. They gave us like a 4-day pass. I think we went to. Where Mount Vesuvius, what's that town? I can't remember right now, but we went, just had the time of our lives. We got to go to Rome while we were there. You took advantage of anytime you had time off. Guys would just sit there, just not do anything. I'm like, well, let's go. Let's go see the stuff we're here. Let's go. Or you go places and overseas, and then guys would go, let's go to McDonald's. I'm like, no, why are we going to McDonald's? Let's go have some, gourmet food that you're never going to have.
When in Rome.
Right? So,
do it as the Romans do.
Yes.
For those of you that didn't know the end of that line.
Yes. But no, I took full advantage. I learned to take full advantage of the time that we had off to experience, other cultures and just expand my knowledge of the world, because history's always been a good thing. I mean, a big thing with me, and it was just awesome to be there.
Okay, so Air Force, so you said you deployed to Italy. In what capacity? So when you're EOD, you're attached to, now are you attached to aircraft or?
Yeah, we were there in a aircraft support capacity.
So same rules apply. You're there to mop up whenever something happens.
Yep. And we had a plane got shot up. One of the A-10s, an engine got shot off, and it had to land in Macedonia.
Okay.
Until they could get guys over and replace the engine. And then when it came back over, we checked it for ordnance and, bullets or whatever, and just made sure everything was okay. But
so you said you're there 99. Did you stay from 99 until 2000 or?
No, we were there for just basically the summer from March.
Just the not invasion portion, but the initial.
Yeah. Once they caught him, or once the war was over, we kind of mopped things up, and then, went back to Germany.
Okay. No, and the only reason I asked, we ended up going to Macedonia, but it was already in 2000. So, and I didn't know the exact reason we went to Macedonia, but was guessing that it was for that A10, but no, it was already pulled out of there by then. So, okay. Moving on.
What was funny is though, we had guys that were my friend, and his name is Peanut, or Daniel DeVille. We're going to talk about him in a little bit, but he was over in Albania, and they were in the mud, and they were living in the shit.
Yeah, like Bondstill or so we had Bondstill and we had Katina maybe Katitha there, but everything was mud because it froze like Korea did, right? It would snow and get real wet and it would triple freeze.
Yep.
But then when it would melt and you guys are moving all your tracks, or your guys, all the tracks and everything are moving through there, and it's just causing crazy mud.
Oh yeah. No, he was complaining, like, when we got back after all this, you guys were living on the beach in a resort, and I was up to my ass in mud. You know, that's like with the Air Force, you could find yourself living in a hotel and, you know, in the cush, you know, part of it with the officers and whatnot. But sometimes you did find yourself
burning your own shit.
Yep. But I mean, and I didn't really experience that until 2006. When I went to Iraq.
Okay.
But
let's, I don't want to skip ahead too far because I want to wrap out Kosovo and your trip to Italy, and we'll take a quick break right after that.
Yeah. No, so yeah, we, you know, again, we were there for like March until September, and then we mopped things up and went back, and that was pretty much it. Like when we were there, like I was going to talk about VIPs. Like, so we augment the Secret Service. We basically become the finder function whenever the president, vice president, Department of State, they go overseas or they go places. We go and we search the airports, baggage, press, all the press gear, Air Force One, the venue. So if the president's going to, so he went to Geneva, Switzerland, Bill Clinton at the time. And we wear suits. We dress up all fancy. We got the thing in our ear, and you're talking in your hand. And you know, we'd basically go in and search above and below, and the actual venue where he was going to be, all the avenues of escape. You know, just to make sure there's no bombs there or anything like that. So that was an aspect of our job that we liked. It was kind of high profile stuff, you know, working with the Secret Service. You know, if you really feel like you're somebody at that point, but,
of course.
But you know, you're still.
You know, I was bagging groceries, you know, 2 months ago.
I know.
Now I got the man standing right over there, and I just cleared his.
Yeah. You're hiding in the closet because, you know, Hillary Clinton doesn't want to see people's military.
Yep.
So
I've heard about that.
Yeah, she was bad. She didn't want to see long guns. She didn't want to see, and like she would
like uniform. Period.
Uniform. Yeah, she didn't want to see uniforms. She didn't want to see anybody extra. She hated even to see the Secret Service, which was weird. They're there to protect you, but you know, it was, you know, Bill Clinton was a cool dude. I never met him, but I mean, he walked by. I think I saw his feet from underneath the closet door, you know. But
he came through my high school in Los Alamos in '97.
Oh yeah,
yeah, I think 97, 96 maybe.
Yeah. But, you know, I worked under, I don't know, 3 or 4 presidents. So while I served, I think. And got to meet Obama. I think that was the only one I got to meet. George Bush, actually, too. I met him.
You met Bush and Obama. Wow. I shook Clinton's hand, but it was in a high schooler's capacity.
Yeah.
So
it's not your commander in chief, you know, not the man, you know.
No, but I never got the opportunity. You know, of course, a lot of my buddies have been on details where they got to do similar things, and nobody ever says anything negative about him. Like the president's always like the coolest dude. Yeah, is what it seems like, but
they're always, you know, good people, and it's just, you know, the politics, you know, kind of drive things. And
see, and I worked at an embassy for a bit in Tbilisi, Georgia. There was a time that she was supposed to come, that Clinton was going to come for a visit. And I didn't know this about her, but that's when I started hearing the rumors, right? It was being pushed around station, like, you guys aren't going to wear your uniforms that day. And, you know, she doesn't. I heard some pretty bad stories about it, actually.
Yeah.
It caught me off guard. I wouldn't see her as, I didn't think that she would be like that.
Correct.
So to hear all of that, it really,
you think,
it's pretty disheartening, man.
Yeah, it was pretty disheartening. It was definitely weird to have the people that you're there to serve don't want to see you.
Yeah.
And don't want to see you in your military uniform. But no, Germany was a great time. We had an aircraft crash there, an A-10. It was a young guy. He was landing and he forgot to turn. They pulled back the power on the airplane.
Oh.
And it went off the edge of the runway, went into the golf course.
Oh, okay.
So it crashed and it's like it's running at 80%. Just like, the aircraft engine's going at 80%. Firefighters shut it down, and then we go in and make sure all the ordnance is safe and stuff. And the ejection seat, because he ejected as it went off the edge of the runway. So we have to go out and safe the ejection seat. There's all kinds of explosives in that thing, and that was my job doing that. But you just never knew what was going to happen. This is all kinds of cool and crazy stuff that you found yourself in situations. And that's part of the enjoyment of the military.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, and what's funny, I spent 22 years in the military. I'd never thought about this, like really thought about it until, just a couple months ago, probably. But it's like we sign a contract that says, I'll go anywhere you tell me to go at any time you tell me to go there and do whatever you tell me to do, right? Which is kind of a scary thing. It can be. But then listening to your stories, it's like that's what you're trying, like you're giving them a clean slate.
Yep.
And you can have some say so in it. Like you talked about guys that sat out here at Hurlburt for 14 years, never left, right? Yep. You can have some say so in where you go, but I mean those opportunities that you're talking through, man, that's huge.
Well, you give up, like you said, when you sign up, you give up certain rights. You give up rights. I give up my right of freedom, basically.
Yeah.
I can't dress the way I want. I can't wear earrings. I can't wear my hair a certain way.
Can't grow facial hair.
Can't grow facial hair. And you give up all that stuff. So like when I see a lot of the things that are going through the military now, or, previously in the past couple of years, I'm like, we're bending the knee to this social type of things where you got to keep some semblance of discipline and military bearing, and it has to function a certain way.
Yeah.
But
well, you talked about it when you came in. That's what you needed. We needed that structure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now we're trying to take that away. I think it's being fixed right now. I think they've seen that it can have such a negative effect if you start bending the knee like you talked about and start letting some of these rules just go to the wayside.
Yeah.
Bad things happen.
Well, I mean, the military has always been a microcosm of society, and you have all those different people. I mean, the big thing was Wiccans. They I remember Wiccans wanted to, practice their religion. I remember there was a guy who wanted to split his tongue, and the Air Force kicked him out for it because he went and did it anyways.
Okay.
Like they do the split their tongue.
Yeah, I've seen it.
So you can't do body modifications. The tattoos were, everything's different for each service, but
I've seen the policy change a multitude of times.
Yeah. So, I mean, they do change things for, because they want to keep recruitment. They want to, bring these people in.
Well, you talked about it being a microcosm. So if kids are getting out of high school and they're getting tattoos on their hands all the way up, before they're even 20 years old, the government's going to have to make some changes to policy, right? Yeah. As these kids, because I was 20 when I came in. So if I grew up in the culture where everyone's getting tatted up, I would have had tattoos from my fingertips all the way up.
Yep.
They would have either had to make a policy change. During that time, they were removing tattoos for guys.
Yeah.
Did you have that going on when you came in?
Yeah.
They were like the gang tattoos. If it had any kind of gang affiliation, I think they would just remove it.
Yeah, they would remove it. Yeah, we couldn't have anything below our sleeve.
For the Air Force.
For the Air Force.
Okay.
So if you were wearing your blues, you couldn't have anything exposed below your. I think it's changed now, but.
Well, I know when I was in Okinawa, so like 05 to 08. Tattoo parlors everywhere. Marines are all over Oki, right?
Yep.
And everyone was getting sleeved up. The Marine Corps came out with a policy that matched the Air Force's, which was like when you're in your dress Bs, right? Your short quarter t-shirts, like you couldn't have any tattoo shown above the neck or below the sleeve.
Correct.
Right? But then, time of war, policies change. We need more people because what we're trying to avoid, right? We don't want to go back to a draft.
No.
Right.
No.
So they try to keep the rules loose enough to where we can keep the military ranks filled, and then, they'll make the adjustments as needed. But
yeah. And that's what a lot of people don't realize, that it's an all volunteer force.
Yeah.
It was a 1.5 million or whatever it is these days. I don't know how much it is, but it's like, people raise their right hand and come in, for whatever reason it is, to serve. But when you do that, you make that commitment. I was just like, I'm a committed, loyal person. I've always been a rule follower. I said a goody two shoes kind of guy, but it was when I saw people breaking the rules, it offended me. And, things changed over the years, but we always made a competition between like the guys in the Air Force. It was just like who had the best looking uniform, who could do, it was always a competition.
To be the best,
to
right?
be the best.
Most squared away, the best soldier,
the most squared away,
the fastest, the best PT score, the
Correct.
best shooter, right?
Yep.
Like it's that competition breeds excellence done the right way, right?
Yeah, because that's how you move up. That's
right.
how you get promoted. That's how you get noticed. That's how, you didn't have to, suck up, but you had to do the right things in order to get, the right score on, for when it comes to promotion, or, we took tests. So we had to take a test to get promoted. But yeah, like I said, I jumped in with both feet and it became my life. And I saw that there was opportunity for advancement if you did the things the right way.
Right.
So if I mopped the floor, I mopped it the best I could as an airman. If my boots were polished, when you polish boots back then, they were as shiny as any, the shiniest in the flight. So
you took a sense of pride in it.
Yeah, you took pride in your uniform. We ironed our BDUs. We had, the old green BDUs back then.
Creases.
With the creases,
starch and
starch. I put my arm in my sleeve, and you had like a razor blade edge, but it was pride. I took pride in the way I looked as a military person.
Yeah, that and same rules apply as you're talking about that. When I was in the 82nd, there was a ton of pride that came along with that, and of course this is going into 9/11.
Yep.
Right. So now things are changing, right? 9/11. Now everyone's at war, right? I mean, we spent the next 20 years after that at war. So, the uniform standards and things like that. Now you had to shift a mindset to be a warrior. You're training for war over here. And now it's full on war, but it is a shift, right? Yeah. It's not a garrison army anymore.
No,
or Air Force.
No, and that was really tough when we go in deployments and stuff like that. And you've been out in the field for 2 weeks, and then you come to the chow hall, and it's like you got a first sergeant getting all over your ass because you got your head. You forgot you had your sunglasses on your head.
Sure.
But I mean, dress and appearance, for discipline and order is, it's important. I think it's part of the discipline, and it kind of, when I saw things happening the way they were in the military, because I came back to work. We'll talk about that. I came back in and went back to work for a year at headquarters, and I just felt like I couldn't portray what I wanted to, like visually.
Sure.
So I wasn't wearing a uniform. I had a waiver. I had waivers for this, for that. I didn't do the PT tests because obviously I can't. I don't have legs. So and then that kind of like what decided for me to get out, because I could have fought to stay in, but I didn't. And just because I wanted to move on.
So going back to Spingala and just kind of rounding out that deployment, you got to do Italy with Kosovo, or so you said that was 99.
Yeah.
How long did you do in Germany?
3 years. Did 3 years, and then I. So when you're in the overseas system, it's easier to go to another overseas duty station. So I wanted to go somewhere else. I wanted to go. Well, I forget what my dream sheet was, but I ended up with Korea.
It's probably Hawaii.
It was probably Hawaii. No, it was. I think it was Hickam. It was Hawaii.
Yeah.
But I ended up getting, of course, Korea, because they always want people for Korea. So I went there. I was in Korea for a year. That was, you talk about culture shock. Everybody. I was 6'1", and you'd go downtown and you're taller than just about everybody. The only person you see is the other U.S. guy over there, who's tall as well. But I loved the Korean culture. I tried to learn the language. Taking in, embracing wherever I was at. But
where were you stationed?
I was at Osan Air Force Base. Yeah.
Okay, so Osan, that's Seoul, Korea.
It's north of Seoul. It's like northwest of Seoul, from what I remember.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't have a map, but Seoul was about maybe an hour or two away, if that. But I got to travel a ton while I was there. So when the Army went to do their RTEP, and I guess it's some sort of training in the field, we'd go up. I went up to Camp Stanley, Camp Red Cloud. And they're up by the DMZ.
Yeah.
And there was one incident. There was some hikers. They found an old 60 millimeter mortar up in the hill. So we had to like rope and climb up to this, blow up this, old piece of ordnance from, the Korean War. And there's so much history there with Hill 180, the last like bayonet charge of the Marine Corps. There's just a lot of history there within the Korean War. It's kind of forgotten war almost, but there was a lot of tough battles that went on there. So I got into a lot of the history. I actually have a piece of barbed wire from the DMZ that they presented us with before we left. And it was just good times, man. Just really good times.
Let me ask you. So I spent a little time in Korea. I did my year out there.
Oh, did you?
I did. I was out on Camp Reeves, so just right next to the DMZ. As we would drive south, right, because the DMZ is as far north as you can go,
yeah.
Right? So as you're driving south, you pass under bridges and rock drops.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, it's about
traps.
every mile,
Yep.
maybe less. They had it rigged to blow.
Yep.
Everywhere, every road, and this is obviously their defense, right? Because if North Korea attacks, they're going to bound south.
Yeah, and the highway, they were so wide.
Yes.
Remember, they were so wide for tanks and for military vehicles.
So how, like you being an EOD tech, did you ever get to kind of go check out those rock drops and like how they had them rigged up? I never did, and so I was always curious.
No, we never got the chance, but as we were driving through them, like the guy was telling us about them, or our sergeant was, and it was crazy. And there was all different types of them too, like different styles of them, from what I remember.
So for our viewers and listeners at home, right? Basically, what that would look like. Let's say Canada, right? To our north, if they were our enemy and we were concerned about them coming down south, we would have all the major roads, all the major highways, like any through pass or throughway rigged with some sort of like rock formation to where it would just cave in. So we would come through, drop it, and that would prevent them from being able to move forward. Now that is exactly how Korea has been living ever since. I mean, because I was there in 2001, I guess.
Yeah.
2002, circa.
Yeah, I was there from 2000 to 2001. So we were probably crossed over a little bit.
Yeah, we missed each other. It sounds like in Kosovo, and then after Kosovo, I missed you in Korea, but not by much.
Not by much. But yeah, like that again, like with the dark cloud of a crazy lunatic, up north. Just that it was palpable, like that feeling of, we could get attacked, whether it was from a no-dong, which was basically a Scud missile. We had 3 days at Osan. So if they came across the DMZ, we had 3 days before they would reach us. And we practiced that all the time. We had
a lot of chem practicing,
a lot
right?
of chem practice,
a lot of the mop gear. I remember that. It was, it's brutally cold in Korea.
Yep.
In the wintertime, and you kind of you were okay wearing mop gear in the wintertime.
Yeah.
But then equally the opposite in summer, it's really hot. So, out there practicing those.
So humid. The humidity just cut through everything. And being cold, I mean, you take a shower in the morning, hang up your towel, and then you come use it the next morning, it was still damp.
Yeah.
It was just so humid. But, again, that was the first time I really experienced like feeling like there's an enemy over there that wants to, kill you eventually. I mean, it wasn't like it was going to happen, but with things weren't too crazy during that time.
It's that feeling of not if, but when.
Yeah. Right.
Like it's inevitable. It's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Is it going to happen while I'm here though?
But we always trained. We always trained for that, and you were always ready. And our readiness, actually, I was there during 9/11, so it came in. We were in FPCon Delta for like a week, just because nobody knew what was going to happen. So we were getting a lot of IED calls and suspicious packages, and so we have to go and tear them apart with the robot and go in the bomb suit and then go pick through it and.
So you were in Korea when 9/11
When 9/11 happened. We were downtown partying. We were in a club, and OSI, like the Office of Special Investigation, and like all the cops came down. They're like, "Are you a U.S. soldier? Get your ass on base."
Courtesy patrols.
Yeah, and we were like, "What the hell's going on?" And we didn't find out until one guy had a cell phone. And he talked to his wife in Texas, and I got back just in time. Well, just in time, but I got in to the day room to watch on the TV and see the second plane hit. It was, an insane time.
Yeah.
There was the feeling of, we don't know what's going to happen.
And you're that far removed from America.
From America, and all we wanted to do was, fight back. And we ended up getting our shot. A few years down the road, but took a little while.
Okay, so let's wrap out Korea.
Yeah.
That deployment. So how much longer did you spend after 9/11 there?
That was September. I left. I think I probably left that summer because we PCS during the summertime. So
That's
it was
right.
probably about June.
Okay.
And it came here. It came to Herbert Field, which is used to be a field of Eglin Air Force Base, but now it's where the first SOW is, Special Operations Wing. And I'm well trained in that. Saying that we were talking about saying the acronym and then saying it after. But God dang it!
It's all right, brother.
No, it's just I don't want it to vibrate and make noise.
Well, make sure you don't need to take it.
No.
Okay.
It's just my friend.
Gotcha.
So I came back to Herbert Field and at the Special Operations Base, and we're not considered special ops. EOD. We do special things, but in the Air Force, umbrella, we're not considered special operations.
So there's no additional selection that you need, like selection process that you need to go to, and then basically earn your way into that unit.
No, there's not. It was just a regular unit at the time. There are now different things that you have to do in order to come to Herbert Field. And we also have another special operations base out at Cannon, in New Mexico. Yeah. So, yeah, it was cool coming, to a special ops base. In the special operations for the Air Force is, combat controllers and TAC-P and what is it? The
PJs.
PJs, yeah, pararescue. So they have their training there, parts of it. And so we'd intermingle with them. We do some things occasionally with them, but nothing really special. So, but I got to Herbert Field probably in 2001. 02.
Okay.
So the kind of got settled in and started finding a place to live and meeting the guys. How it is when you change teams or duty stations. You got to meet all new people, and I didn't really know anybody there, so was there. So 02, nothing. We did some more deployments with the aircraft. They went over to Southern Watch again, and so the AC-130 gunships are there, and the some other countermeasure, electric countermeasure stuff is there at Herbert Field. And so we did, again, being in the Air Force, a lot of aircraft stuff. So now we're dealing with guns. So if a gun gets jammed, we have to go hammer the thing out with a rod. So, 105, putting a rod down the gun and then using a dead blow hammer to hammer out a rod, like it engages the rifling.
Right.
But then they can't fire it because it's a misfire. And then they can't eject the round. So we have to go in and go beat the round out.
That's got to be eerie.
It is. I mean, we know that it's not armed. Sure. But again, you're hammering on a piece of ordnance. So,
yeah.
Or we had old anti-aircraft guns, the 40 Mikes, 40 millimeter. And sometimes those would engage the rifling and they pull the cartridge out and then all the powder just comes out, goes all in the gun.
Wow.
So you have to go and they bring the gun, or they bring because the round is still in there. They face the aircraft. You get called out usually about 9:00 at night because they fly at night. And you got to go beat the round out, clean up all the gun, we use like a solvent or an oil to desensitize it and, clean it up and safe the gun, So
it's a bent gun.
Yeah. It's not unnerving because it just becomes normalcy to you. And we always talked about in EOD, it's like when you turn hot water on and you stick your hand under it, it's going to be hot, right? And burn you. If you turn the water on, cool, and then you put your hand under it, slowly gets hot and hotter and hotter, and you don't realize that it's burning you.
Right.
So it's kind of like the way I think, working with ordnance and that stuff is you build up a confidence in knowing the systems and knowing the ordnance, knowing the explosives, that you become not numb to it, but just confident in the fact that it's not going to blow up on you. It's just a sense of control that you do have, but there's always that Murphy, right?
Sure.
That, something could go wrong.
You'll always have the respect for it.
Oh yeah, massive
but
respect.
But you understand it.
Yeah, you understand it. You have a massive respect for it. Again, like you could, take a limb off, or we always joked about, like, guys would be like, EOD, let me see all your fingers and toes.
Yeah. Well, going back to the movie, right? Speed. If you remember the bomb tech, right? He was missing his fingers.
Missing his fingers, yeah. So, you always thought something like that would happen. You'd get, have something explode close to you, maybe catch some frag or, something like that. But, never the half-ass sacrifice, which I call it. The ultimate sacrifice is, sacrificing your life, for your brothers in war. And I always refer to this in my own language is the half-ass sacrifice. I put my life on the line and, I took a hit, but, you have that survivor guilt. And, we'll kind of delve into more of that stuff, but I wear a bracelet on my wrist that has the 20 Air Force EOD techs that lost their lives, that made the ultimate sacrifice. And I'm not on that wall, thank God. But again, I'm sad that I'm not on that wall, or not sad, but that I'm here and they're not. You have that survivor guilt, which is something I live with every day, because there's better men that died other than me, and it's like, you try to think about, I should live my life for them and that sort of thing. And I do. But there's times where I'm just, so depressed and that I didn't make the ultimate sacrifice. Obviously I'm glad that I'm here and I'm happy that, I did survive for my family. But as we get into my story, I'll cover some of that. But, being at Herbert Field, it was kind of like a prestige because it is special operations and you get a lot of extra money that you can do stuff with from the special operations world. And so we got to get all the cool guy gear and as things get on, my first combat deployment to Iraq in 2006, which we were all excited to do because we finally got a chance to go and do the real stuff, Right. But I was like an E5, young staff sergeant in the Air Force, and I wasn't supposed to be a team leader. I was just supposed to be like a number 2, like a robot driver. And because like usually an E6 and above, or an E6 was the man. He was the guy who goes down on the IEDs and everything like that, and you just stay in the truck and drive the robot. And your job was to keep your P1, your number one, the guy who does all the hand jamming and or going down on the bombs, keep him safe and keep him alive.
So you're his security, like
you're the P2. You're his watchful eye. Okay. If he's doing something wrong, you tell him. You're watching everything. You're making sure security's in place. Because his mind is working on the IED. So
okay, so you're looking for any personnel in the area that could be the initiator of that system.
Correct. Well, our security was doing that mostly, but like once the security and the safe became a safe zone,
okay,
and we had control of the area around it, then we would change hats basically and get into the EOD aspect of it and work in the IED, and we mainly focused on the safety of the security and of the team leader from what we could control from our aspect of it. So using the robot as much as possible, because in Iraq it was ordnance everywhere.
Okay.
Ordnance, all Russian stuff, Iranian stuff, and as the war progressed, they ran out of munitions. So then it became homemade bombs.
Okay.
But so I came in as a E5 into my first combat deployment. I was up at Fob McKenzie in northern Iraq, and it was post Fallujah. So Fallujah, they were all there in that one area, and once they did that, they kind of scattered all throughout Iraq, all the insurgents. So we were encountering stuff that was, kind of simple to disarm, and then we'd find some stuff that was not so simple to disarm.
So what would you consider like a simple disarming for you?
Simple disarming would be just going down there and using the robot and maybe pulling a blasting cap out or something like that, or just bringing explosives down and just blowing it up on the side of the road.
Okay.
That would have been the easiest thing. Other things were when they started using radios, like family mobile radios, something that you would communicate with, with your family, just like a hand radio. And it got real sophisticated, and we started. Army lost a lot of guys, Navy lost a lot of guys, and then they called in the Air Force to basically create a joint task force, because we had, I think at the time, probably 1,100 EOD techs, and we were just as well trained, and IEDs as we could use robots. We were trained in hand.
You guys had the same baseline.
Yeah, we all had the same baseline training.
Okay.
So
you should be plug and play then.
Plug and play.
Okay.
Right. So we just had to they added combat training for us and combat lifesaver. And we started doing all that, the add-on stuff, because
the cross training,
because we were going to be attached to Army units.
Okay.
Which I didn't know I was going to eventually be attached to ODAs and Green Berets and, special forces type stuff. And, I found myself doing helicopter missions where I've never been on a Black Hawk before. I'm the first one off the helicopter, and we're landing, and they're like, open the door. I'm like, I don't know how to do, where is it? Land, they had to show you. I was like opening the door and jumping out. And I'm like, I really didn't have that type of training in the beginning.
Yeah.
So it was kind of learn on the fly. And luckily those guys, you learned working with different units. Like the regular Army, they were squared away. They did their stuff. But when I worked with the Special Forces, you guys were just ate up in such a good way. Like squared away as far as combat tactics, doing rehearsals and making sure that the guys that were attached to you were part of their unit. They felt that we were part of the unit. But we had to earn our stripes, right? Because we're also a liability at some point, because we didn't really have all that high-end training. But, we could fake it till we made it.
Sure.
And we did, but that was, early war, 2006 was, You know, it wasn't '03, you know, but things had come to be pretty sophisticated bomb-wise. And, you know, and sometimes, you know, they'd build a strike package and they'd take out a bomber, and then it would go and be, you know, very simplistic type stuff that we would find. But, which was good, that's what we wanted. But it was just crazy. And this was wild, you know, Wild West, when you're just being able to blow up stuff on the side of the road, in the middle of a street, you know. We didn't take fire very much. We took fire on that one mission that I went on. That was my first time experiencing, you know, machine gun fire coming from an enemy.
Where were you guys at?
We were out of McGuire at the time, I think. I was trying to remember. We were out of Kandahar, was the main base, the mob. And we had gone on a flyaway mission. That was my first real mission. We had intel that some guy was supplying bombers with munitions, and they had stuff buried. They had all these spider holes buried with munitions. We took so much stuff out of the ground. We blew up thousands and thousands of pounds of just enemy caches everywhere. And, you know, you felt so good taking that stuff out of the enemy's hands. That was one less. I mean, we found man pads, you know, like anti-aircraft missiles, launchers. I mean, we found just RPGs galore, grenades, mortars, everything. And anything that we could, like I said, get our hands on and take out of the enemy's hands was a win.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, we always felt good about that.
Let's round out that trip in 06. So you said that was your first quote unquote real combat mission. Like
yep.
you'd done Kosovo, and you said there, you know, you were watching it go down from Italy. But this is the first time you're really feeling it.
Yeah, the real deal. I mean, like when we took fire that day, I mean, I was like laying face down in the tree branch. It was like a movie, you know, tree branches are breaking from the fire, from the enemy fire. And we hadn't done a shot yet. We hadn't blown the shot up. So we finally got the shot off, and then that created more fire as well from the enemy. And we put started the orchard on fire.
So you're going in there to destroy caches?
To destroy caches.
Okay.
And we had no way out, because the aircraft, when they let the Iraqis go first on the aircraft, and the aircraft took fire. So they didn't bring the birds back because it was a hot, you know, LZ. So they had to bring in some Bradleys. And they brought in the Bradleys to pick us up. But in the meantime, they were firing 155s from the Paladins that were over at Balad, that was close. And again, I feel like I'm a young E5. I'm a team leader at this point because they needed me to be a team leader. And I'm experiencing all this stuff on the fly, you know, trial by fire.
Yeah.
And you got 155 screaming in. It's like a movie. And just blowing them up, and it stopped they killed them. And the Bradleys came in, and we marched out. And then we load up in the back of a Bradley. I don't know if you've been in the back of a Bradley.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we got those things are supposed to hold 8 guys. We got 14 guys in there.
Oh, yeah.
That back door comes up, seals, and you're just like, whoa. And it's like 140 degrees inside those things, and it's just, and like, again, I'm experiencing all this stuff for the first time, and you know, it's all cool, you know, when you look back at it, but you're like, holy crap, you know,
the uncertainties and the unknowns.
Yeah. So it was pretty crazy, but again, just a Air Force EOD tech, you know, experiencing combat for the first time. And it was very surreal, you know, very surreal to be in that position at the time. And we were off base. I mean, we had 3 teams at one FOB. We ended up at I can't remember the FOB's name, but we had a security that was they were a mortar platoon, and they took us out. I mean, we would do 6-7 missions a day. Yeah. You know, whether it was a post-blast analysis, we'd do a post-blast because we had to take intel. Yeah. We got to collect the evidence. We'd, you know, collect if it was a pressure plate, it had fingerprints on the tape. that kind of stuff. So we had, guys doing intel on that, and again, to develop strike packages for you guys, so you could go get these guys to stop bombing us. And again, that was another, thing that we took pride in, was collecting evidence.
Yeah.
But sometimes try not to get wrapped around the axle while collecting evidence, and because the situations would turn bad quickly. Start taking fire and got to get out of there. Or,
yeah, you're limited on time.
That was time and time on target was important. And we'd get bitched at because it took so long for us to get out there, but once we showed up, we'd take care of business and get out of there. And again, just getting rid of all those munitions. Like you felt like you were saving soldiers' lives. Again, looking back on it, not at the time, but it was very rewarding in that manner.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal purpose to have.
Because we saw the carnage on like post-blast analysis of vehicles being decimated, Humvees split in half, and the whole crew gone.
Yeah.
We always pulled up at a scene that was bad. And you start seeing the human tragedy of war. And I experienced a lot of human tragedy because we were always there to, after the bomb went off, whether it was Iraqi soldiers, Iraqi, police, enemy soldiers or insurgents, or our guys. It was harder when it was our guys, but, it was our job.
Yeah.
That was our job. And you just, again, went with the flow and did what needed to be done, because again, that was our job. Somebody has to do it, and that was us.
Yeah, and you say that, and I've mentioned this before. We gauge our mental health off of each other when we're going through things together.
Yeah.
We look to our left and our right, and if they're okay, we're okay.
Yep.
Because you're absolutely right. Somebody has to do this. This isn't something that just we just can go without doing it. It has to be done.
Yep.
That's the unfortunate truth behind it. How are you dealing with it? Like you said, you're good.
I'm good. I mean, like now, we're talking about what, 06, we're talking 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Godly, that's, to think about that. But we did, between the three teams, we did over like a couple hundred, combat missions. Whether it was the post-blast analysis, unfortunately, we did probably 2/3 or, maybe 1/3 of what we actually did versus rendering stuff safe. But the post-blast was really what took its toll on you because of the carnage that we saw from individuals getting hit. So sometimes we were there to help save lives, do self-aid buddy care, or was it triple C, combat care on wounded. And then sometimes we were there to help clean up. So that did a lot for my mental state, and it wasn't when we came back, we were just so grateful to be back at the FOB, and we'd kind of do, your post-blast brief, and you do your briefings and kind of break things down like, whoa, that was intense. And, but you kind of look forward to the next one. I don't know. It was just, we were crazy in that because we loved it. You trained your whole career to do what we were doing.
Yeah.
And we loved it. And when you came back from a deployment and you came back stateside and you were like, this sucks. It was like when, you spend time with your family and that next deployment's coming in like 6 or 8 months. So you took your time to kind of decompress. And that's where you started to have those PTSD moments, And it usually took me about 3 months. I'd come back, I was so amped up still. And then 3 months later, it hits. And I'd just be like, whoa, and what's wrong with me? And none of us wanted to go to psych because you were so afraid that they were going to take that away from you. And that was such a negative stigma. And like I said, I had seen so much human tragedy in 06 in Iraq. That kind of set my base level of my PTSD level, because it was the stuff that I saw was just so intense. And when we came back, they didn't really have that structure. Like you come back, you get your 4 free visits with psych, and then after that, you could choose to go on record or not, because those things were usually off record. You'd see a psychologist and you talk about what you saw, and they'd make you take a journal. I hated journaling. That was like the worst. They wanted you to relive it and talk about it. And not that we wanted to keep it in, but we just didn't really want to talk to these people because you was a civilian.
Yeah.
But then I think it was, I can't remember if it was 06 or 08. So I deployed, I came back and, just did regular stuff back here at the base, normal garrison stuff, more training, train up, and
get ready for the next
deployment. The training never stopped. So like I said, you knew that we were going back in 6 to 8 months.
So it keeps you engaged mentally.
It does.
When we're back here and we're in our training cycles.
Yep.
Keeps you mentally engaged because that is, I mean, you talked about it. I mean, it takes you about 3 months when you get back, you're still amped up.
Yep.
It takes you about 3 months before, that stuff starts kind of setting in a little bit.
And, I didn't seek any help. I did like my 4 days. I did the talk therapy a little bit, and I kind of thought it was a joke at that point. But again, none of us really wanted to go on record because we were afraid we were going to get, profiled and, lose our job.
Did you really think you were that bad though?
Not at that point. Not at that point.
Yeah.
It wasn't until 2008 when I came back from 08, my replacement got killed. And that was devastating to me because, I hate to look at it as that could have been me type of thing, but it just got real close.
That realism.
It got real close. And when my replacement got killed, and I worked with you guys a lot too in 08, and I worked with the British too, doing a lot of flyway missions. And that was in Afghanistan. That was my first taste of Afghanistan. And landmines everywhere. If there was one IED, there was 10. Just the amount and the pace. And again, more firefights in Afghanistan, more than Iraq. But
what was different in Afghanistan than in Iraq for you?
Probably the landscape. Just
you're getting shot out from a larger distance, or are they closer when you're getting ticked up?
Farther away.
Yeah,
further away. And it was like, we'd strike back, and then you couldn't find where were they? Where'd that come from? So, and you're driving through the desert at like 3 miles per hour in a truck, in a MRAP, a mine resistant vehicle, but you drive and all of a sudden, poof, and it's like, all right, who was it? Who got hit? That was just a constant, driving through the desert. It was just, you pick a different trail to go on and they'd mine that, then you'd sweep that, clear it. And then you come down that same road in a different spot and there's more mines. They'd backload. You drive by, they'd be putting mines behind you.
Wow.
So it was just a constant enemy, placement of IEDs. And things were, is not so sophisticated, but to the point to where our tactics had to change constantly, as far as like movement, whether it was vehicles or on foot. I did a lot of on foot stuff. Cause I was 06, I was gone. 07, I went to Africa. I forgot about that one. We did a mission with the aircraft, and I went to Djibouti, and we were out of another reclassified location doing some stuff. The aircraft were, and we were just there for like a security mission.
Okay.
But that was only like for a month. Anyways, so I was gone 06, 07, 08, I was in Afghanistan for the first time. 09. I was starting to feel the PTSD. I was starting to feel the fatigue, I guess, if you will, or the burden of what I was going through and seeing what our brothers were going through because we were losing guys as well. And so in 09, I took a back shop type thing out of Manas, our transit station out of Kyrgyzstan, former Soviet Republic. And so it's where all the troops go through at the time to go into Afghanistan.
It's kind of a last staging
area before you. That's where they compile all of our forces before they go into Kandahar or Bagram, wherever, or Camp Leatherneck. So I took a back shop and, was trying to take a cushy deployment. And I was there for maybe about 2 months. And then we lost 2 team leaders on one mission in Afghanistan out of Kandahar. So then I forward deployed because I had team leader experience. Yeah. So I forward deployed. And that was always something that we knew that could happen.
Sure.
So I went down there and was back in Afghanistan. We were in Arghandab Valley, north of Kandahar. And, we had HESCOs that weren't filled, which was crazy at the camp that we were at. So security was always like an issue. And they finally got filled when we left. Because I deployed back after being in Arghandab Valley to go back. And they finally filled the HESCOs. And the day that they were filling the HESCOs, they got attacked because they didn't want... because like all the equipment comes in to fill the HESCOs with dirt and stuff, and they attacked them. It was like we flew out and they attacked them. It was like, what? It was just craziness. And anytime you tried to improve anything, like improve stuff for the locals, they'd come and attack it.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of walking that year. That was in 09. I was there in Arghandab Valley. We did a lot of on-foot stuff, walking 6 clicks to get to a device and then walking 6 clicks back, in the dark, using nods, all that stuff. And, walking through knee-high mud, frustrating as all, and then you get there and it's not anything and then you got to walk back. And that was my first experience of doing the stuff on foot. Everything that we mostly did was vehicular, but we carried everything on our backs.
Of course.
We had one guy carrying a robot on his back. We would always split load. Everybody had explosives. I had my ropes and hooks and stuff to hook stuff up.
Your grapples.
And my grapples and whatnot to pull stuff out of the ground or hook it on a wire and pull it. And the other guy, we were all split loaded. We tried to measure it out so everybody had the same stuff in their ruck.
Right, cross load.
Yeah, cross load. And it was fun, but frustrating. And
welcome to the infantry.
Welcome to the infantry. That was like my first, infantry experience as far as that went. And again, like we're Air Force, not pogues, but
you're enablers, brother. You get attached to whoever.
We get attached to whoever, and that's man. We blew up some big ones there too. Like in Afghanistan, it was like thousands of pounds, or in a culvert, and they'd take out a whole vehicle, or you're talking to a guy in the chow hall, and next day he's gone. It's just because they drove from one base to the next and drove over a culvert with hundreds of pounds of explosives in it. But going back to after 2008 deployment, I said enough was enough, and I was like, I need help, because I'd come home and I just like my depression. I was really irritable. Depression was bad. I'd been divorced. We didn't talk about that, but I had married and got divorced. And when I came back from Iraq, I found out my wife was cheating on me and went through a divorce as well to put that on top of all the other, crap that I was dealing with human tragedy and whatnot. But so I was like, enough is enough. Fuck this. I'm going to see. I don't care about what happens because something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I ended up going and talking to a military therapist, and she's an Air Force colonel, but she gave me books. I read books. We the talk therapy, I told her crap that I never told anybody about the stuff that I did and saw. And she helped me so much. And then I deployed again. And what that did actually, I was able to, they put me on profile. And I was on profile, I think, for about 6 months. And I got help. I got better. And the guys in my shop saw that. And I had guys come to me, and I get a little choked up about it because it opened a door for them to get the help that they needed. Because I knew I was suffering.
Yeah.
And if I could go and find help and seek help and then also deploy again and do the job again as a fully functioning, team leader, then they could as well.
I validated that.
I validated the process.
Yes.
Because I saw it in my life where I needed to fix it. And thank God I did. But my lip is quivering, and it's very emotional for me because, again, I'm not like a groundbreaker, as far as that went, but I feel like that what I did helped other guys. And
it paved a way.
It paved a way because they saw that I could go back and do the job again. Because we all had that fear, like I said earlier, was they were going to take it away from us.
That's right.
So when I went in that deployment in 2009, I was good. And, then we lost 2 more guys. They were guys that I knew. And I didn't think this was going to happen, dude. But
good.
So coming back from 2009, I went to go back to see that same therapist. She PCS'd. And so I lost her. So I was like, great. Now I got to start all over again. And at that time, I hadn't been put on any meds. And when I came back in 2009, I was like, I was experiencing the same thing. So, 3-4 months after that deployment, I started having those feelings again. And I went to psych, seek help, and she's gone. She took all her notes with her, nothing was, there was some stuff in the record, but I ended up, have to start all over again. Got to, start from day one of Iraq up to now.
Yeah.
So I found this captain, talked to her, and then, the depression was the hardest part for me. And I think I'm predisposed to depression. I think it's in my family, anxiety's in my family. So, which I didn't know, nobody ever told me. But so we talked about it, and I ended up getting on a med, getting on Zoloft. And I've been on Zoloft ever since.
Okay.
It really gave me, because I'd get really deep down. And then I would get the swings of being really happy, real.
Kind of like a bipolar.
Yeah, like a bipolar. But what the Zoloft did was put me in the middle.
Right.
It numbed the crap out of me. It almost made me like an emotionless freak. And it worked, but at the same time, it gave me other stuff I needed to work on and deal with. So, I was pretty stable and steady. That way I had to function, as a EOD tech. And, we're still losing people. And, then my deployment where I got injured comes up. And, back to Afghanistan. It was my 3rd time in Afghanistan. I knew, I was pretty well, versed in our job, and I was really good at it. I felt like I was good at it. Yeah. Not cocky, not confident, not cowboyish, And maybe I did some things, that I probably shouldn't have, here and there, but the situation dictated it.
Sure.
Whether we were in a TIC, troops in contact, I'm sure a lot of your listeners know about that, but, you had to do stuff on the fly, but still did it in a safe manner. because I used to yell at team chiefs or team leaders when they would do stuff wrong. I had to, because they were operating in an unsafe manner. And you're going to get yourself killed. You're going to get somebody else killed. I felt it, was our responsibility as like almost the safety guy on scene.
Right.
Sometimes you have to tell your security guys, no, you can't do that. We haven't cleared over there yet. Because I got attached to the Marines on this, on the deployment in 2011 when I got hurt. And, they like to get out and get dirty and run around and, do their thing as Marines.
Yeah.
But again, like when you're in Afghanistan, it was like, if there was one bomb, there was like, felt like that year it was 15, bombs in the ground. So, got attached to a Marine unit, and it was kind of a conglomerate of some engineers and, just regular, grunts. So, we kind of settled in, started doing our thing, and, we had some IEDs here and there. And then we got called back. We closed down one of the FOB Edinburgh. And we go back and we end up getting put on the most painful thing that you can deal with mentally is doing route clearance. So you got this long chain, you got a mine detector up front, a big vehicle that, mine detector, and then another clearance type vehicle behind it. And then you got that, the big, what was it called? Buffalo.
Yeah.
That big, MRAP that had the digger on it, or the shovel. So, you're driving 3 miles an hour through the middle of nowhere in the desert, and, you just never know what you're going to come across. And you're traveling through different AOs, so different operating areas, and it for me, it was not difficult, but I would always go back and research my area as a responsible team leader should have, to know what you're dealing with,
right?
What the signature of the bombs are, what kind of bomber you're dealing with. Is it a guy that knows what he's doing? Is he making non-metallic stuff so our mine detectors can't pick it up?
Right.
Which was something that we started getting into the 2010, 2011 timeframe. And, we're changing tactics all the time and trying to keep up with what they were doing. It's a cat and mouse game.
Absolutely. And
keeps you on your toes. But as you're traveling through different areas, you're traveling through different bomb makers. And, I always go back and look at old reports and see, what was going on in that area. But we kind of were going through a place that really hadn't gone through in a long time. So we were doing a mission for the Georgians, the actual country of Georgia. And they were going to go set up a picket. So to try to stop the bombers from placing IEDs in that area. But we had to go and clear this town. And so we were outside this it was called Cop Signs. It was on the west coast on the western side of the Helmand River, just south of Musakela. And we were staged out there living out of our vehicles for like 24 days or something like that. Sandstorms, dirt in your food. You wake up with, 3 inches of, caliche on you.
The
moon dust,
yeah.
And, breathing it in. But talking about the suck, it was like, I didn't give a shit. It was great. We were doing our thing. It was just doing our job, and we loved it. And, if guys complained, I'd be like, go over there. I don't want to hear it. That's not what we're here for.
Right.
Or you need to change your attitude, because you're going to bring this team down, and it can be infective.
Oh, absolutely. It's
and
toxic.
If you got guys thinking about how crappy the situation is, they're not focused on their job.
Yeah.
And, so I always tried to keep my team.
Keep the morale high.
Keep them focused.
Yeah.
We had the thing that really saved us was that we had a Keurig in the back of our truck. So we had hot coffee, good coffee, not the Sanka packets out of the MREs.
Small victories, bro.
Yeah, small victories. So we had that going for us. But my team was real strong. I had a guy who just got promoted to E6, and I was an E6 at this time. And I think we were in this place called Ingarik, some weird, town and out in the middle of nowhere. no people there, just weird sense, so we got all the pieces to this big, huge convoy got together. We finally roll out. We roll out and we left the safety of the cop. And, we roll out, go around, and we start coming into this town. And it was really eerie, kind of weird. Like I said, nobody's around. And one of our lead vehicles gets hit. And pretty bad. We had to medevac some guys out. And one guy, both his ankles got broken from the blast, hitting the vehicle. So I go out and do my thing, start doing the post-blast analysis, and, found out it was a command det.
Okay.
So I got, followed the line for as much as we could, and then the bomber's gone. We found the battery that he hooked up to it to set it off. So I was like, okay, we're going to have, again, like not knowing what this AO has to provide as far as bombs. So in my mind, okay, we got command det. All right, we get all that vehicle stuff cleaned up. They medevac a few guys, and we roll on. Then we had an ABV, which was a big Marine. Basically, it was a M1 Abrams tank that was modified with a plow, and it had these teeth and then a plow blade. So what it would do is just plow the dirt and make a road. And those teeth were designed to catch any wires and try to disable any bombs. So we roll into this town. We got another suspicious package or something that they found. We investigate it and put some explosives on it, blow it up. It was pretty much nothing. We go in, and then we come across another one. And we were actually able to excavate this one with the robot.
Okay.
And then it's a plunger type. It's a pressure plate type explosive.
So you're seeing command det.
Seeing
pressure plates.
Pressure plates.
And what was the other one that you guys disrupted?
It was we just blew it up. We didn't investigate it or find anything. Okay. Sometimes we do a blow and go.
Sure.
Just if we thought it was nothing, because we investigate it with the robot, and then if it came out to be nothing, we just blow it up and go.
Okay.
Put some C on it and go. So we get through this town, most of the town, and we get to basically the exit of it. And boom, the ABV hits like a 60-pounder. Rings the guy's bells inside, and it was a big one. Disabled the plow, destroyed it. So we're all like stuck there. So now they send the vehicles around to go and rescue the guys out of there.
Recover.
Boom, they hit an IED. So now we found like 3 or 4. One's already disabled one of our vehicles and hurt, our guys. And then boom, another one hits. It was just like quicksand. And there was, I think at the time, before I actually got out of the vehicle, I think 5 or 6 IEDs had already gone off on vehicles. So finally they said, let's just stop. But because one had driven right outside my window and blew up. And so that was the first one I investigated. And we were all stopped at that point. This is bad. We got to stop. And so the Marines had got out and started setting up a perimeter and doing whatnot. And I was getting afraid that they were going to step on something. And they had an explosive dog. And they started to use the dog. And they were unreliable because of the dirt and things like that. Their nasal passages getting filled up. And they were kind of unreliable. So we called them in and I started getting out and doing my clearing. So I started doing the post blast on the one that was right next to me. Literally like right outside my door, about 3 feet away. And that was a pressure plate. So, okay, different type pressure plate. So we get out, and obviously there's pressure plates everywhere because the vehicles are driving over them.
Yeah.
So obviously it's a bad situation. And so I get out and I start doing my post blasts on everything. I'm using my mine detector, and our mine detectors at that point also had ground penetrating radar because of the lack of metallic signatures in these bombs. So They were good, unreliable. You know, the training was good. If you felt confident with it, you know, you could find stuff. But the different, again, talking about different AOs and doing a different, like if you had a rocky area, you'd have to basically take the time to recalibrate that for that type of soil. Or if you had, you know, soft, powdery soil, you have to recalibrate it each time. So anyways, I get out and I do my post-blast analysis on basically all the ones that had already gone off. And then I start doing the main one that went off on the tank or the ABV. And I'm doing my thing. I got a clear path. And I was thinking that one was a commandet because we had a commandet on the way in.
Right.
And there was like another mud hut way off in the distance. And there was like a trail that was looking like it was commandet. So I went back to my vehicle and I'd already done some clearing just to make sure I was safe. And I was kneeling down, digging, you know, trying to find, and there was a wire sticking out. So I go back to my truck. I grab another tool that is helpful to find a commandet and come back. And I'm thinking, all right, this is going to get bad if we don't get out of here soon. So pick up my stuff, start walking back to the vehicle, and then boom. And I had I always had my rifle, obviously, you know, and I was just in regular kit, no bomb suit. The situation didn't dictate at that point. Some people might question me on that, but that was my choice.
Right.
But so I got my arm in with my rifle, and I've got this other piece of equipment in my hand, in my left hand. So it feels like, you know, I just got hit by a train. You know, ears are ringing, you know, typical like movie type stuff. And I'm like, oh, I just got fucking blown up. And I'm on my chest and I'm awake. Like I was out for maybe seconds, you know, and I was awake and the cloud of dust is there. I'm in the crater and all I see is my arm. I see white and red. Couldn't see my hand or anything like that because I'm dazed, obviously. So I'm starting to come to, and it felt like, I don't know, it felt like minutes, but it was probably seconds. My guys got to me, and I'm laying there, and I got tunnel vision. It was about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm just staring at the sun, looking up at the sky, and feeling no pain, really. Kind of feeling like the way I feel right now, just numb, and didn't know the extent of what had happened to me. So they get to me and they start talking to me, keeping me awake, obviously. And all I wanted to do was go to sleep. I was just like, man, I was just tired probably because of the damn blood loss.
Yeah.
But again, I didn't know the extent of the damage that the bomb had caused. So they get to me, they start tourniqueting me. Those things hurt like a son of a bitch. I don't know if you've ever had one on you, like for that when they're used for that reason and not training. They put it on my arm because my arm was severely damaged. And, you know, they're like, oh, your wife's pregnant. You know, she's going to have a baby. What are you going to name? You know, they're trying to keep me engaged and keep me awake. Because I was like, I'm so tired, guys. I just want to go to sleep. And they're like, no, you need to stay awake. You need to stay awake. And I knew that. I know all that stuff. But until it happens to you, I wasn't screaming for mama. I wasn't crying. It was just, I knew what had happened. And I was just trying to stay as calm as I could. I don't remember a lot of it. I remember the tourniquets going on. I remember them, you know, putting the tourniquets on my legs, and I just wanted to see what happened. I was trying to sit up, and I couldn't sit up. I knew it was bad. My other guy worked on my right arm because that was bleeding from my right arm. I had gotten peppered on that side. Luckily, this arm was so close to my body that the bomb didn't take it away. And like I said, it just had some minor damage to it, but they're calling for the medevac. I hear all that, and they're like, where's that? And then finally I'm laying there felt like a while, and I'm like, where's that fucking medevac? Because we lost a female EOD tech team leader, and she died on the helicopter. And I know that those 30 minutes are so important.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't know the extent of the damage to me, but those guys, they saved my life right there. Those 4 guys, stopped the bleeding, bandaged me up. Again, like I didn't know what they were doing. I didn't know till after the fact. He's like, the doctor was like, those guys saved your fucking life. And so they put the space blanket on me. The helicopter shows up. It's a British helicopter out of Camp Bastion. There's a Roll 3 hospital there. That's where I went. They took me there. I passed out on the helicopter. I remember seeing the doc and the nurse on there. And the Brits actually have a doctor on board their helicopters.
Okay.
So I got to the helicopter. They said goodbye to me, and I passed out. Either I passed out or they put me out because I think the pain started to roll in.
Were you starting to notice the pain by that point?
I think so because I think they put me out, or either I passed out from the pain. So they flew me to Bastion, and I'm out. I woke up 5 days later after my first surgery at Bethesda, or at Walter Reed Bethesda now. So again, they tried to I went to launch stool, of course. They tried to stabilize me there. They tried to wake me up. And it's kind of come to me over the years, I do remember them waking me up. And I just remember seeing like white and the light above me. And I squeezed a finger and he's like, oh, he's going to make it. He's going to make the flight. Because they thought I was going to die. And my wife was 7 months pregnant with my son. They didn't want to fly her over because they fly her over to Germany and I die, or they fly me back and we crisscross. It's happened where they fly people over and, the soldiers going back, the wounded soldiers going back, and the wife is flying over.
Yeah.
So luckily they held her. They brought her. They told her I was stable to fly, so I flew. And then, like I said, I woke up at the hospital at Bethesda Naval Hospital 5 days later. So I was hurt on September 23rd, 2011, and then I woke up on the 28th, I think. So I was pretty much out for 5 days, and that's where I woke up. I had no voice, couldn't speak because I was intubated so much. I had like central lines, in my chest and in my neck, for IV stuff because my arms were so damaged and legs were nothing. So that's when I saw my new reality right there. And, I never get emotional when I tell this story.
Sorry,
but
brother.
It was just, it all hit me right there. I saw my arm wrapped up, gone. My hand was still there apparently, but the stuff in between was not viable to sustain it. So they had to amputate it. And then the bombs did this to my legs. From what I was told, it was about 15 pounds of HE, high explosive, I think it was homemade explosives. And I probably stepped on it with my left foot, I think, because that was the most damage. But it's pretty badass to get hit by 15 pounds of explosives and survive.
Jesus.
But I woke up with her there by my side. My wife was there. Not able to speak. Finally seeing the damage, the extent of what the bomb had done. My legs were gone. I'm really high up. I've gotten shorter over some surgeries that I've had, but I just wanted water. I was so thirsty, and my hair was like red from the dust and the dirt. They hadn't cleaned me. They just done basically the basic stuff, hammered me with, antibiotics and pain meds. So I had a couple surgeries along the way, apparently. But so coming to my new reality, it's didn't really set in because I was so drugged up. And I was in ICU for about probably 2 weeks. And my parents finally came and, they were there. And then the pain really kicked in. It translated into like heaviness. It was heavy. Felt like I had elephants sitting on my freaking legs. But my brain still thought my legs were still there. And my arm. So that's the phantom limb.
Right.
Sometimes it's pain. Sometimes it's just the feeling of the legs being there. And it felt like my legs were bent and going through the bed. It was really weird sensation. The legs took a long time for them to come around to really feel like they were gone. But the nerve pain was just extreme at that point. So I'm hitting my button every 8 minutes as much as I could to get that 1 milligram of Dilaudid, which was the most they could give you, and getting put on ketamine, which was again a weird thing, going through alternate realities and just being in very lucid alternate realities. But the pain was it's kind of still there, but you just don't really think about it. But having my family there, my wife was there, my in-laws were there. The support that we had was just immense. The amputee network, you had guys coming up that had been injured already, saying you're gonna be fine. Look at me, I'm walking. It's just, you're gonna be fine. That really helped you. Coming from your brothers. Actually, Brian Mast, who's he's a representative out of South Florida. He's a bald guy, missing both legs. You probably see him on TV sometimes.
Yeah.
He was like one of the first guys that came in my room, and he's a Marine EOD guy. So it was very helpful, to have all that support. And plus, EOD Warrior Foundation was right there, helping us with money, helping us, my wife and my family getting there. You didn't have to ask for anything. The support network, like I said, was immense because you're going through this devastating, event in your life. What's next? My lifeline was here, and boom, this explosion just made me go on this alternate lifeline. And, my wife and I, we cried it out one day. Everybody left the room. I was having a moment, and she gave me my dog tags back. my wedding ring, I still got it over here unless you need one. Again, I never thought this was going to happen, but because I talk about it so much. But just the gravity of the situation hit, and we basically she gave me my wedding ring back, and I put it on my right hand. And we just basically had a funeral for my legs and my previous life, almost. And knowing the stages of death actually really helped me get through like this grave situation that I was in. Knowing how to grieve. It took it takes a while to get to, those, because you get angry, you get pissed. Why, I didn't ever say why me, because I knew why it was me, because I was an EOD guy on the ground doing my job. I always knew this was a possibility. Actually, the pink mist is what we always talked about.
Yeah. Going
up in a pink mist. But I never really thought about these situations of being, devastatedly wounded like this. They never really talked about that. Like losing an arm, losing legs. What's it like? We never knew about that stuff. And that was a difficult part for me. But again, getting through it, having my family there was just, all that PTSD stuff that I experienced before was now compounded, with this. And I was having night terrors, I guess, about my incident. And from what I remember, they just tried to put me on different meds to cope with it. And that's something I never experienced, was night terrors before. So, all the other PTSD stuff was still there with me, but now I got to deal with limb loss. Where am I going to go? How am I going to be a father? I love to play sports. Can't do that anymore in the old capacity.
Right.
How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? And we just talked and talked and talked about everything. And, you learned the different ways that, you're going through therapy, you're going through surgeries. My left leg was like a country ham for months. It took months for it to heal. And it never fully healed until I had a surgery. And then they just took all that stuff away and made, used really good skin. But to make my leg to what it is now. But, dealing with the injuries almost became like secondary to everything else. Like, I always knew, like, through sports and getting injured in sports, this is temporary. And, laying there in the bed, I have to be strong. I have to be strong for myself, for my guys, because all my guys, they flew up the general here, General File, 3-star general, he's the AFSOC general at the time, flew up my guys in his plane. They loaded up because I got a Bronze Star for this, and eventually I got a Silver Star, but they loaded up a C-130 from the base for my Silver Star ceremony, and brought everybody up. It was awesome. That was just amazing. The support I had from my first sergeant, from my colonel, from everybody. Obviously, it's unexpected, and it was so heartwarming. And like in this time, having your brothers there was just exactly what you needed.
I don't want to say that it sounds like it made it okay, but like it made it okay for you.
It made it better. It did make it okay, I guess. But so I was in the hospital for 2 months. That's it. I got discharged after 2 months. You'd think that like maybe a little, maybe 6 months or something.
Yeah.
But I got discharged on my birthday, November 24th, and we go back and you go into like they have barracks there for us for the wounded, and I'm still going to appointments and whatnot, but I was stable enough to not be in the hospital, which for me, my wife being pregnant, it was nice for us to go go back and be a husband and wife, and thank God we could still be intimate, put it that way, but you get to see that at that time, there were so many 18, 19, 20-year-old kids maimed, quad amputees. The damage that you saw from the war, it would stop people in their tracks. When they walked into the MATC, which is the workout area, you'd see people just like stone cold stop because it was just so overwhelming, because you're seeing 15 amputees. You're not seeing one, in your hospital bed. You're walking into a room and all these guys got smiles on their faces. They're embracing the suck, right? They're moving on. And that just made you want to work so much harder to be, the person that you were or whatever you're going to be now.
Right.
And I put so much in what those other amputees showed me to what I could do. And, because you're so drugged up at that point, you're coming into therapy for the first time, and you're just seeing all these warriors kicking ass. And it's just the same shit that we did, but in a different aspect. So, these Marines just crushing it. And, I got real close because I was in my 30s, and I met another ODA, Green Beret, and we got real close. And there was he was missing both legs, and he had one of his arms was pretty bad, and he was high. He was missing. He didn't have a femur at all. He just had a hip. It's called a hip dysartic. And we got real close, and we talk about all kinds of stuff and talk about how we got injured. But he was an older guy, so we kind of got our older guy network together. But man, just those other people and their families, man, it's just They all had kids, kids on the way. Our wives are the strongest individuals in this world.
That's right.
They're our backbones. Like my wife, her story could, melt hearts too. Because like I said, she was 7 months pregnant. Husband gets blown up. She's teaching at school, and like the guys show up. My colonel, one of my best friends, and the first thing they said to her, he's alive, to start with. But I can only imagine what her mental, like what she was going through, walking up and seeing my colonel, my leadership, and then also the what are they called? Not the reverend, but the
casualty.
The chaplain. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
The chaplain. And her mindset and what she's doing. Like now her reality has changed. My husband's disfigured. What are we going to do? Where are we going to live? I can only like that stuff. All that gets solved down the road, but these are all things you think about, in the moment. So like the families, all the charities that were there, the Semper Fi Fund was there. They're called the Fund now, but I had gotten the Silver Star for rescuing Marines, and I didn't even know. I don't remember what I did. That's the hard part. I had the commandant of the Marine Corps and the MCPON. Yeah, he's the top enlisted.
Okay.
He comes in my room and they're there and he goes, "You help my Marines, we're going to help you." And here I am, just this, Air Force guy. And to have another service come in and, like the head of the Marine Corps comes in and says, "We're going to take care of you." It's like, holy shit.
Wow.
And I had my Air Force leadership at the time. He was the chief of staff of the Air Force. He was the chief of staff of Joint Chiefs at the time. And I still talk to him to this day. We've just the relationship that we've created, and we've done a lot of stuff over the years to help spouses and to help other airmen and all, Marines and soldiers, because it becomes your life work just to help others that are in the same situation. But, my son was born 2 weeks after I was discharged. You never seen like an amputee move so fast. I was asleep on the floor, and he was born on the 6th floor at Walter Reed. And they give a gift certificate. They give you a certificate that says I was born at the President's Hospital, and it's got his footprints on it. We lost it, of course, but it's probably buried in some box somewhere. But, sure. But so he was like, my life was changing in so many ways in such a small time, and it was a lot to cope with at that one point. But my wife broke my finger in childbirth. In labor. She squeezed my hand and twisted my finger, and my pinky was already broken from the explosion, and it just re-broke it. And I just heard it, it goes click, and I was like, "You just broke my finger." She's like, "I know, I'm sorry." But, now you have a baby. And I went up for surgery that afternoon. And then, so she was in the hospital for 2-3 days. And I had surgery on my arm to fix some stuff. And there's a picture of me holding my son. And I'm just glazed over, like peaked white, just so glossy and glazed. And I don't even realize I'm holding my son, it's just crazy. But I had all kinds of stuff that was going on too. I had blood infection. I was getting blood transfusions, heavy antibiotics. I took 18 units of British blood. So I'm part British now.
Oh, wow.
But they were surprised that I survived with the amount of blood loss that I had.
that 18 units, that's a considerable amount, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it usually, I don't know, 4 to 6?
I think so. Because the body only holds like
7
or 8. Yeah. So I had, lost a ton of blood, and I ended up, so I was 200 pounds when I got blown up, 6'1", 200 pounds. After like the blood infection and all my infections, I weighed 130 pounds. I was like a skeleton, and it comes back quick. I'm pounding like, protein after protein, and I had rhabdomyolysis. So my body was digesting my muscles. There was a lot of things going on. I remember when I met President Obama, when he came in, I was getting a blood transfusion. I got like all stuff hanging on my, like from the bag holder. I'm taking blood, and here I am shaking the president's hand, and I'm just like all glazed. And he held my son. Like, that was crazy. I was like, Cameron, you got held by a president. Wow. But he's a cool dude, Obama, regardless if I don't, agree with his politics. But we talk about presidents. They're cool, they're people.
Yeah.
So, it's all overwhelming experiences coming in all at once. But, the fact that they take their time to come in and talk to us and meet us, that was an amazing experience.
Yeah, it is. I love when I hear that.
Yeah, because you don't expect, I didn't expect my chief of staff of the Air Force to be in my room. And the support that they gave us was, from his wife and, just other generals coming in and just giving their condolences, but their support.
Yeah.
So it's, now I have a baby, it's nuts.
So what's life look like moving forward now? You got discharged, but you're still dealing with a lot of antibiotics,
Yep.
a lot of infections. So when you finally get to the end of that, to where they're basically telling you, hey, that's all we can do.
Yep. 2 years later.
Okay.
So we lived up at Walter Reed for, we ended up moving off base, actually, the SOCOM Care Coalition, because I was not special forces, but under the umbrella. The SOCOM Care Coalition got us an apartment. They have apartments for the special ops guys wounded. And we lived off base with my mother-in-law and my father-in-law. And they were there to help Lisa, my wife, take care of the baby. And they were there for 4 months helping us out. Again, priceless, sacrifice and care that they gave to us. Stopping their lives, moving up from Florida. I think they were in Georgia at the time, coming up and staying up with us for 4 months. And again, that was priceless because I was not in a capacity to be helpful for my wife at that point because she's taking care of me and the kid.
Right.
So moving forward, I was there for 2 years, left in 13. Moved back to Destin. And during that point, actually, we were up there, there's all these home building organizations at the time, like Gary Sinise Foundation, the Tunnel to the Towers, Building Homes for Heroes is who I went with. There's also, I think, Homes for Troops or Homes for the Home for Troops, I think it is the other one. But Building Homes for Heroes would be mad for me mentioning them, but they were all there. But Building Homes for Heroes is what I went with, and because I had a house, 1,200 square foot home, doors can't, fit a wheelchair through.
Right.
So we ended up moving back and we went into an apartment here in Destin. And I went back to work as E7. I made E7 at that through all that stuff. And I went and worked at headquarters. And that was miserable. I was not a headquarters guy. I was definitely not an operator, but I was definitely a team leader. I like to be out in the field. But we did some things while we were there, which was good. And that during that last year, I decided to not stay in because I had about 4 years left. I was about around 17 years, and so I decided to go to the med board and punch out.
Now, obviously, that was offered to you from the beginning, right? I mean,
The med board?
Yeah, they weren't expecting you to just stay in and continue to serve, right? In that capacity.
They didn't expect it, but they supported it.
Yeah, of course. Okay.
Again, general. I had like the base or the general, the AFSOC general, the base general, and then my supervisor was there my first day back at work, welcoming me to the headquarters, which was again astounding for the support, because again, it's not expected. But it's totally grateful and gracious that they did that. But yeah, so I went back to work for a year and decided to med board, and my med board came back in like a week. So I mean, it was really cut and dry, and then you actually get out and you just start doing the VA stuff, and still getting out was still a transition for me, but I just knew I was done. I had nothing more to give, and I just wanted to go home and be a dad. They actually created a civilian position for me, and I went back and worked at the shop at my flight I worked for about 6 months, and then I quit. It was I was driving 30 minutes back and forth from Destin. I wasn't really doing much. They didn't really want to overwhelm me.
Sure.
But I wanted to, by this time we had another baby, and I wanted to be a stay-at-home dad like I couldn't do when I was with my son Cameron. So I chose the family route and to stay at home so my wife could go back to work, and my son was at her job at the time because she was a preschool teacher. But I just wanted to move on and live my life the way I wanted to. Not have to tell anybody where I'm going. Didn't have to ask permission to go to leave the state. So it was my time. It was definitely my time.
So you ended up doing 18 total, or how
17.
17
ish, yeah. So it's 16 years, 7 months, and 10 days. So I mean, looking back on it, I wouldn't change anything. Obviously, getting blown up wasn't the greatest, but it was kind of a blessing in disguise to be able to get out of the military and have the time with my family that a lot of guys won't have, and the guys that aren't here didn't have, so I kind of just took that with open arms and really embraced it. So it was something I always wanted to be, was a father.
Yeah.
And
family man.
A family man, yeah.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, you mentioned, you're still dealing with the PTS stuff when the incident happened.
Yep.
You go through, you're recovering. So we've been talking mostly physical recovery so far, right? What was your mental state, right? You're dealing with obviously the new you got a brand new baby. You try to go back to work, and you're dealing with a lot.
Yep.
What were you using? You mentioned medication initially. What were you using during this time? What was working for you to keep you from falling into that depression?
Yeah, well, we had a lot of mandatory talk therapy and stuff when I was back at Walter Reed. So those 2 years, they really we did a lot of stuff to basically get me mentally stable. Again, because it was really crazy in the beginning, but a lot of talk therapy at the time. That was pretty much it until I got back to Florida, and then I continued to do talk therapy. But then the depression really kicked in, and I started just laying on the couch. So I spent a good 4 years of doing nothing, just kind of trying to get my mental state better. And I can't really remember if there was anything specific that I was doing differently other than talk therapy. And just some other physical stuff, because the brain, the mind, and the body obviously work together. That's a no-brainer, but my body was great. And I was at a good stable point, trying to walk was difficult. Because I was so short, I couldn't get my prosthetics to stay on properly. So I struggled with that quite a bit. And so I ended up being just wheelchair bound for a while. Like probably 8 years I spent in a wheelchair before I ended up getting another surgery. But I ended up going to a retreat that was through the EOD Warrior Foundation. And they delved into, it was actually an old monastery in Connecticut. And it wasn't a spiritual retreat. It was spiritual in the sense of not as in, God and religion and Christ. It was more of kind of like Eastern stuff, bringing in some of like, some meditation, bringing in, at first it's kind of hokey, like talking about Native American, how Native Americans dealt with their warriors when their warriors went to war, because a lot of these cultures don't have PTSD. Like the Viet Cong, they don't have PTSD like Vietnam vets do. It's a weird thing that they have their tribal culture. They're able to disperse it and talk about it amongst their family, their other tribal people, if you will. So we learned about like different ways that different cultures dealt with PTS.
Okay.
And, the Greeks, the Romans, and we kind of dealt with a lot of the Native American type stuff. We tried to do some like working on like doing some spiritual trips in your mind, different coping aspects. And, we held a rock in our hand and we put all our PTS and we put all our all our faults, all our thoughts, bad stuff, and we put it into a rock, and then you're supposed to throw it in a lake, to symbolize you getting rid of that.
Right.
But we put it in a bowl of water, and then they took them and threw them in a lake for us.
Right.
So we knew it was going somewhere. But, a lot of that stuff, like while you're going through it, in the beginning, it's kind of hokey and weird and stuff. But then by the end of it, you're like, hey, this is kind of working. And we all talked amongst ourselves, and we told stories that we never told anybody else before, like stuff I told my therapist. We all laid it out there because we felt comfortable.
Right.
There were other warriors, other EOD guys. And we all shared the stuff that we saw and we did, and it helped. And during that session or during that retreat, I learned about transcendental meditation. Again, like going into like some of the Eastern cultures of yoga, and there's mental yoga and then there's physical yoga, and they actually work together. You're supposed to do physical yoga before you do your transcendental meditation, which is mental yoga. And I learned about it, and it's a closed practice where you get a mantra and you say the mantra in your head over and over again, and you get this kind of like this inner peace, and you go into yourself and you feel like you sink. And the way they describe it is, on the surface of your mind, it's tumultuous. The water, the wind, the waves are crashing against a boat. You're in a boat and it's tumultuous. And as you go into your state of transcendence, it becomes calmer. The waves stop, the water starts to settle, your mind settles, and you go really low, like almost like at the bottom of the ocean is kind of the way they describe it. It's calm, it's surreal, and you just have time to just be at peace. And you come up, you go back up, you come back down. You go up because you're always going to be distracted by your brain. But your mantra, you go back to your mantra and you settle down and you come back to your spot, your peace. And you do that for 20 minutes twice a day. And it really gives you that time to be inside your body, inside your brain, at peace. And it is one of the greatest practices I've ever been a part of, and I suggest it to everybody that that can do it. I think it's like, I don't know, it's like $1,000 to get into, but there's organizations out there that will pay for soldiers to go, or I always say soldiers, but for warriors to go and get that practice.
Now, so if I were to look it up, you called it transcranial, say it again?
Transcendental meditation.
Transcendental meditation.
The Beatles, it was big in the 60s. The Beatles did it. There was actually my teacher, or my instructor, her name was Prudence Bruns. She was the muse for the song Dear Prudence. She was over in India with the Beatles when they were there, and the transcendental meditation movement was big, with the yogis and all that stuff. And she fell into this practice so much she would never leave her hut. And it was like, Dear Prudence, why don't you come out and play? And she's actually a famous actress's sister, Mia Farrow. She's Mia Farrow's sister.
Okay.
And when you talk to her, she has Mia Farrow's voice. It's crazy.
Wow.
Because she has kind of a high-pitched voice. And she's such a calm woman, and it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And it continues to be whenever my brain is hyperactive, and because my fight or flight is just, my anxiety is still there. That really helps me kind of center myself and get ready for the day. So,
okay.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of meditations out there and guys find them, but this is just the one that I got onto, and it's just been a life changer.
And it's working for you. So.
Yeah, it's working. So,
and that's the whole thing, right? I mean, we sit here and we talk, and that's what it is. We're the end users. I want to know what's working for you.
Yeah. Well, the Western medicine wasn't working for me, like the talk therapy, the journaling, there was I did some rapid eye movement stuff, which kind of worked a little bit, but it's just, I started finding stuff that was more spiritual to me. And I really found my faith. As a Catholic, we're spoon-fed the Gospels and the Word by our missalettes and by the priest. And I started reading the Bible more and getting into, my faith and where I stand in my beliefs. And the TM actually made me more spiritual and closer to Christ, because I'm able to calm myself and feel His presence. And I didn't talk about it, but when a couple months before I got injured, my friend Peanut DeVille got killed. He was out. I was at Spangdahlem with him, and he got killed in July. He was going to recover a robot, and he knelt down and just killed him. So that hit pretty hard, because he was a really close friend of mine. We had just seen each other about a month before that. We were back at the main base, and we were talking about, we just both missed Master Sergeant. We didn't get promoted, and we hugged each other and went on to our teams and went to our separate fobs. And then we found out he got killed. It was pretty devastating. And so talking about God and Jesus, and I was always kind of standoffish and never really let him into my life. And my friend Peanut was the quintessential family man of faith, intelligent, the greatest father, the funniest guy you ever met. And this talk about better men, dying and me living. So I had a lot of survivor guilt with that one. And we came back for the EOD memorial, and it was the year that he was getting put on the wall. And I was having a lot of trouble dealing with that. I was going to have to see his wife. I didn't know what to say to his wife. I was going to have to see his kids. We helped raise his kids when we were back in Germany. And I don't know, I'd come to the decision that I didn't want to go to the memorial. I didn't want to go. and I didn't want to see his wife. So the memorial happens. I did a couple functions, but I never saw his wife. I had to go back up to Walter Reed. My van needed to be serviced. I needed an oil change. I drive to Fort Walton Beach. I pull up. Who's in front of me? His fucking wife. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And I put on a smile. I got out of my wheelchair and I rolled up to her and I just hugged her. And I said, I don't know what to say to you. I don't. And his daughters were there. And I was just like, I don't know what to say to you. And I go, I was avoiding this situation. I told her, I said, I was avoiding this situation. And she goes, Joe, it's okay. She started to comfort me. And I was like, I needed that. And God put us there for that. Amen. That cannot happen. And you cannot tell me that was just a coincidence.
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. So, and I was selfish at that point, and I took that comfort. And because I saw that they had prepared for all this, whereas I hadn't prepared my wife, for this type of situation. And they had everything, it still makes it not easy to deal with, but plus it had been probably about a year or so since it had happened. But to the fact that I was avoiding her and then God put us together because God knew that I was hurting and that she could help me with her grace and her faith due to the fact that she has come to with the realization, again, not easy, but that she was able to cope with the loss of her husband. And like I said, this guy was a gift to humanity. And that was one of the first times where I really sat back and said, God is real. And I've had a couple other instances where I've been hurting and I meet people for a certain reason.
Yeah.
Things just don't happen. We are feathers in the breeze. We live our lives. We have control. But I realized I'm on a path of something I don't know yet, but the Lord will bring me there.
Amen.
Some people, religion turns people off, but it's real and it happened. There's no way to explain it. And my faith in the Lord has gotten me to this point. You talk about things that I use. That is one of them, my faith. I'm not afraid to die. I know that I'm going to go home and I'll be with my brothers, whether you believe it or not. I do. That's what faith is. And that strength and faith gets me through every day because I'm not afraid to go. I'm afraid of how it's going to happen, but sure. I'm not afraid, to go. And I've come to grips with that. Because I wish I died out there. There was a lot of times where I wish I never got off that battlefield, that I wish my name was on the wall. It would have been a hell of a lot easier on me.
Yeah.
Selfishness.
Absolutely.
Selfishness. And faith helps me deal with that. I don't think about that anymore. That was probably in my early days. And, we'll talk about the demons and they are demons because there's nothing could explain why I would want to kill myself. Why would I want to take myself after everybody worked so hard to get me to where I am today, the doctors, the 4 guys that saved my life, my wife, everybody has put so much stock in this person that's sitting here. It would be a tragedy just to spit in their face and not be able to deal with my pain and my PTS and my TBI and, the demons that crawl in my head and make me want to do things. So my strength in the Lord is, and again, I don't ever talk about this, so it has blessed me with the strength to carry on, because I've one of the guys that helped save my life on my team killed himself. Don't know why. Again, that's something I strive with, to the fact that I wish he would have picked up the phone and called me as opposed to picking up a gun.
Yeah.
I don't know why he did it. I know how it could happen because I've been there. But now he's gone. A beautiful young man that always had a smile on his face. And, I got to go and see him in a coffin looking like I didn't want to see him. They told me the casket was closed, and I went in there and I saw him. And I pinned my silver star on him. So it's down there with him. That funeral, I've never been to a SEALs funeral where they slam their trident down, but we do it with our badges as well. And it was a tough day, and whole tough situation. But it's the butterfly effects that I realized from seeing other people take their lives, because I've known 3 people that have taken their lives, and it just causes so much pain and anguish to the people that stay, because we just wish we could have helped them.
It's a transfer of pain.
It is. And now I live with that. It's a scar, it's a scar in my heart. And, people are going to do it, they're going to do it. But we just wish that if they could just reach out. It's not easy. And I get it, because I've been there. But when you have somebody that close to you that had a hand in continuing your life, take his own, it's devastating to me. And it's just something that will never leave you, just like losing guys in battle.
Yeah.
But it's an uncomfortable conversation to have. But when you see somebody's hurting, you got to step up, and I know the military struggles with this problem. It's a problem that, how do we fix it? See, I don't know if you can, but we can do as much as we can to, doing buddy checks and not letting guys just get off into these worlds where they feel alone. They feel that nobody's there. Because, like I said, I've been there. And it's just the pain that it causes is just unbelievable. And I'm sure you've experienced it.
Yeah. I'm really happy you talked about the accountability piece, right? All of those guys that came to your aid, and that's not the worst thing to do it for. You know what I mean? To be accountable to the people that were there for you.
Yeah.
And if that's what you need to hold on to, I think that's a great thing, right? We talk about accountability in the military. We're great at accountability in the military.
Yeah.
But once we leave that, it's like we forget how to do it in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
If we can keep each other accountable, Joe, you talked about it. Just reach out. If you're hurting, if you're struggling, reach out, let somebody know, and at least give them the opportunity, right? And that's one of the bigger struggles that we have, is we know we could have been a difference, right? Yep. Somebody dies on the battlefield, you have to struggle with, were you in your position? Did you do something wrong? Somebody takes their own life. And it's the same struggle. Was I not in position? Did I not see the signs or the flags?
Yep. And that's, yep.
So yeah, just, I mean, to finish what you were talking about, you be accountable to each other, reach out and give us a chance.
Yeah. And like that's the hardest part is dealing with, it's a whole other world, like you're talking about, compared to the survival guilt of losing a battle buddy, or I hate that word, or that term, but the losing a brother. But it's like when I got blown up, nobody else got hurt. And when I did my work, when I was out there, nobody else was in harm's way. Trucks were buttoned up. Nobody was, if you were watching me, you were from a camera. Mm-hmm. Because if you can see the bomb, it'll see you.
That's right.
So they got a camera. But I always made sure, because I looked at all those guys, all the Marines, my team, everybody that was in that convoy as my responsibility. And when I was doing my job, there was nobody that was there. So if something did happen to me, A, they're there to come and help me. And B, that they're not, I don't want to be responsible. Like if I would have been, if my teammate, because we were swapping back and forth, because he was in E6 and he was a team leader just as well. Yeah. And he did the IED just before I got blown up. If that was him, I would probably be in the ground as well, because I don't think I could have dealt with that guilt of that should have been me.
Sure.
And it's luckily the situation turned out the way it did, with just me getting injured, and that nobody else did other than the other guys on the way in. But, from my incident, I didn't cause anybody else to get hurt.
Right.
Because there is a causality there that I'm responsible for.
And you talked a little bit about survivor's guilt, but what we didn't really mention was the moral injury piece that comes, later on within that recovery, right?
Yep.
Because again, this is where we sit back. You're talking about, one of your best friends, Peanut's wife, and that moral injury that comes from that, and that survivor's guilt behind it. What's helped you along the way? I know you talked about your faith, and you talked about the talk therapy to an extent, but the brothers, right? Yeah. Being able to have the conversation still, right? So like once we leave the team room and we're no longer in the military, those conversations are harder to have.
Yep.
So do you guys do any kind of get-togethers on a annual basis or anything like that?
Unfortunately, no. We do with the EOD Memorial. It's like so the first weekend in May is EOD weekend, and it's like a national holiday. So a lot of guys will come into town, and for the memorial, we have like an auction to raise money for the EOD Warrior Foundation, and that's where we can really get together, and like we'll have guys over for dinner, or if my friends are in town, or we all get together for like the ball and stuff like that and talk. But in a situation, I kind of like that, but we don't really get into the nitty gritty type stuff. I get more of that, what you're talking about, of the brothers getting together, when I go on a hunting trip. So hunting is my passion. It's my therapy. And I've met, warriors from all over, and we're best friends in 5 minutes, and razzing each other, picking on each other, talking about where we were, what we did, or, oh, you were there? Oh, we crossed,
right.
And then, listening. I love to listen. Obviously, I love to talk too, but I love to listen to other guys' stories, because A, they're getting it off their chest.
That's right.
And, I think I told you about it, but I'll say it again. I used to speak, and doing speaking engagements and telling my story, it helps get a little bit of piece of that burden off of my heart and my mind every time I tell my story. So, it's therapeutic in that. And then being with other warfighters, operators, because like a lot of the stuff I go to, there's a lot of special forces there.
Right.
And fishing trips, we can just cut loose, have fun, talk about our stuff, and it comes out. And it, whether it's having a few drinks or, maybe having a little weed, but it's we feel comfortable with each other. That comfort level that you cannot feel with a stranger who's a doctor, listening to you in talk therapy. Your brothers are more therapeutic than anything.
Yeah.
I come back from a 5-day hunting trip and I'm like on cloud nine.
Cloud nine, yeah.
It just, the way that I feel is just, everything is, I just feel lighter and happy. And I don't feel happy often. So, like, when I've been on a bunch of hunting trips, the hunting is just part of it. And they've come to realize that these hunting trips are more therapy than anybody can provide. Because we don't get to see our brothers all the time. Like mine were still in the Air Force. They've moved on. They went to different bases, or they're too busy, or again, some people don't know what to say to me. I feel like some people won't come talk to me because they don't know what to say. Just like the problem I had.
Sure.
But I found it in my therapy and in my life to comfort them like my friend's wife comforted me.
Yeah.
It helps me cope, and it helps me just release and share their pain, because that's what humans are for. We're conscious beings that have energy to share, and we share it with other people. We're sharing it right now through these microphones, and I'm feeling it with you.
Yeah. I
have been. There's a connection.
There's an energy field.
There's an energy connection. Mm-hmm. And we're sharing it with each other right now. And that is so important in this world. And we're so divided right now. And when we go back, like you're talking about, you leave your team room or you get out of the military, you go back to your hometown, you go back to wherever. If you're not close to a base, you're not going to see military.
Yeah.
You're not going to see your guys. But I know some guys do reunions. Like we were on so many different teams, like all the time. So which was good. You get to meet a lot of different guys.
But you didn't have like one.
We didn't have one.
Yeah, like this is our crew.
No.
Yeah,
we would deploy as a team out of here sometimes, but when when you showed up for training here at the States, mm-hmm. you got a bunch of EOD guys from all over the country, all over the world. And then
when you leave,
they're like, here's your team. You're the team leader. That's your number 2. And there's your robot driver.
Yeah.
And then here you go. Start talking. Sometimes you get somebody that you've been with for, you've been on deployments before, or you worked with before, or it's one guy from your base. But they try to share all that experience. They try to put guys that they think are going to work well with others.
Talent management as well.
Yeah. And like my robot driver was his first deployment. And he gets to experience this, and I experienced a lot of stuff on my first, I don't think what happened to me led to his decision to take his own life. He had other demons that he was dealing with, but the human connection is so therapeutic to me. And I'm like kind of like an old man sometimes. I'll just talk to anybody.
Yeah.
I don't meet anybody that's not my friend before I leave. I was at Universal this couple weekends ago, and I'm just talking to people from Michigan, like, oh, because I have my dog with me, right. my service dog, and they're like, oh, your dog's so beautiful, and then we start talking, and that's they're gifts. The dogs are gifts, you know that, and we can talk about that, but that's been part of my therapy, my service dog, and just because when my kids go to school, my wife's a teacher, I'm at home all day by myself.
Yeah, you mentioned 4 years of just kind of being on the couch.
Yeah, just being on the couch watching TV, and I was just like, I gotta get a grip, man.
Yep.
Because the mental, my physical aspect of my injury was healed, but my mental aspect had not. I was lost. Didn't have a direction other than the family. And that's when I was like, I got to do something.
Yeah.
And so I pulled my shit together and got back on the horse, to say the least. But so having a service dog, if you want to transition into that, but it's changed my life immensely.
So let's talk a little bit about how they work, right?
Yeah.
Because for the listeners at home that don't have any experience with service animals, especially when it comes to what they'll consider like a PTS service animal, right? He's not going to get your medicine for you.
Yeah.
He's there to. Now they can still, for instance, Truman, he'll block, he covers, and he braces, right? So they perform tasks. That's what makes them service dogs. But a lot of people don't understand how they work for you, right?
Yeah.
And so you talked about being on the couch for 4 years. So if your morning looks like, okay, get up, get the kids ready for school, help out, with your wife leaving, but then for 8 hours, 7 hours, you just don't have any purpose.
Yeah.
Right. So you're just there watching TV.
Yeah.
Well, with the service dog, he can't let himself outside. So you're accountable to that service dog now.
Yeah.
And whatever he needs, he's really getting you to focus on him and not on you.
Yeah.
That's what I've come to realize, right?
Well, you talked about having to go get my service dog is, he's a mobility service dog first, and then he's a PTS dog. So they'll come if I clench a fist, or if I put my head in my hands, or if I look, even if I have a look on my face, they've been trained to come up and like nuzzle your hand. Mm-hmm. To break you from that. But like mine can open doors for me. He can go and he can pick a credit card up off the floor if I drop it. That was the most thing that I drop stuff all the time.
Sure.
And it's not easy for me to bend over and pick it up because I got to bend at the waist and I could fall. And so having the mobility service dog, and he's my best friend. I mean, he is my medicine, to put it that way, because he is there. He's there during the day. And now I have my girl, Penny, as well. And they're just a huge blessing to have, because like you said, when you don't want to do anything, or they're there and make you do stuff. Like you said, let them out, or they want to play, or they need grooming, which is all the time. But, and they're there. He's there with me. He goes everywhere with me. I mean, and he's so loyal. He's such a good friend. So they're medicine in themselves.
100%. And then, you talked about a couple of things that he'll do for you. When you talk about hypervigilance, they'll alert, right? They'll let you know when someone's around. They kind of watch your back when you're shopping. They're looking behind you. So there's a lot of things that service dogs are doing, but as far as like how it forces you, to get off the couch, it just makes you be accountable to somebody that can't do it for themselves.
Yeah, and for somebody like me that didn't want to interact in society and talk to people sometimes, like I would get in those depressive states. I'm like, I got to go to the grocery store. I need to buy stuff for dinner. And he's with me, and then people will interact with me because of the dog. And then I have to do it. I have to interact with people. And then it forces me to do that, and then it gets me out of that. And it forces me to get away from my depressive state, and just another way to get over it. But
it's pretty awesome how it works.
Yeah, they're amazing animals, and I know you've worked with a different organization, and mine was Valor Service Dogs. And actually, my dog Penny, she's coming up on her 1 year evaluation. They do a home check, make sure that she lives in a safe environment, that I'm taking care of her. And then we'll go out and we have to do a public access test, and to make sure that we're still working together properly. So it's not like just here's a dog,
right? And
it's still their dog basically until a certain amount of time. But it's just a constant thing that we have to deal with and take care of which keeps our minds going. And I'm definitely a fan of service dogs, of real service dogs. And when people have them for the right reasons, they're a huge blessing.
Yeah, I agree. Is there, so when we start talking about medicine space compared to different therapies that are out there, right? Art therapies, canine therapy, or service dogs, horse therapy, or equine therapy.
Therapy.
There's just there's so many things out there that exist that I wouldn't know about, right? If it weren't for conversations like this.
Yep.
What else have you seen that kind of struck you as like, wow, that's interesting?
Yeah, I think what's being talked about a lot, which a lot of things I didn't know about, was the hallucinogenic drugs.
Okay.
I heard about the MDMA, or what's the street drug called?
Ecstasy.
Ecstasy. Yeah. I've heard about trials of that where it's in an environment that's by a with a doctor, because a lot of this stuff kind of scares me.
Sure.
About just taking random stuff, but I know there's some organizations out there that will help us, with the ibogaine and also with psilocybin or DHT or DMT.
DMT, yeah.
So that has been something I've been wanting to explore, because I've talked to like a MARSOC guy that was became a different person.
Yeah.
And then I've heard really good things about it. I worry about the safety of it and how I'd react to it, but it's something I'm willing to try, because there's something in my mind and in my brain that's just still there. I don't know what it is. It's almost like a dampening effect where I can't feel connections with people, and I want to connect with people, and that's part of me and who I am. But there's just something there. Even with my own kids, there's just something blocking. And I've heard that this guy was telling me about when he went through it, that lifted, and that he's able to connect with his daughter, who he's never connected with in his whole life. And I think she was like maybe 16. So she went through a lot of deployment, but bull crap with him, and his PTS and all that stuff. So my son and my kids have experienced it. And there's just, if there's that one hump I could get over, and mental clarity and just that fuzz that's in there from those constant explosions. Like we talk, at EOD we do explosions all the time.
Yeah, you're consistently getting that overpressure from those explosions. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. If you could see the bomb can see you. Yep. Well, those blast waves travel a great distance, right? Yep. And so your body's going to absorb those. And we were talking earlier about operator syndrome. Those consistent concussions, those micro concussions that just happen, day after day, year after year, and your body builds up scar tissue from it. Your brain. So when you talk about that fog or that something's missing, the medicine, the ibogaines, the 5-MeO DMT, those things are what guys are saying is that it's stripping kind of those receptors, and it's like opening new.
Yeah, and I've heard about that, where he said he was he could hear Rice Krispies in his head of new what they attributed it to is actually new neuron connections, or new brainwave connections,
neuro pathway. Because they're saying you get 30 days roughly of neuroplasticity. Multiple neuroplasticity, building those new, I don't know if you'd call them networks, or if it's opening up new networks, but it's phenomenal what it's doing. I know Texas is doing a pretty good job with their ibogaine research, and I've heard California's, not far behind them. So a lot of the states across the country are opening up to psychedelic treatment therapies for a lot of the PTSDs and the TBIs. So, but you haven't tried any yet?
No. And it's talking about PTS and TBI. I've always struggled with both of those. I was diagnosed with mild to moderate TBI because I was only knocked out for maybe seconds. But gauging it on being knocked out, I don't think is necessarily, if you lose conscious for so long, how now that equates to the damage. But I've been wanting to investigate those psychedelics. I have not tried them. I've heard good things about them. Positive, you look for the positive feedback from guys. And I've had a couple offers. I've tried to apply through a couple agencies, but just the timing wasn't right, or the money wasn't right. But I really agree that they, I think I don't know if President Trump is, or the VA is looking at these as well to incorporate these in our therapies, because we've got 20 plus years of warfighters that are experiencing these issues that they're still responsible for helping us. I feel, as much as we do on our own. And I love that, guys are going out and starting these programs. Other warfighters are going out and starting these programs. But I do believe that need to have some sort of, pathway through the VA to help us.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you'd mentioned, President Trump being pro, giving us the right to try. If you think back to during COVID, he was talking about, allowing people to try different treatment options, as opposed to the vaccine. And then when I was talking to Ryan and Frankie, I think Ryan was saying the Secretary of the VA came out and said that they're seeing, a lot of positives in the psychedelic therapies. And he straight up said, like, hey, if this is working, then yeah, let's do it. So I think they're trying to figure out now what that looks like, because a lot of the therapies, they're on this, Schedule 3 narcotics list, making it illegal for us to go and do them within this country. So, this all started with guys going to Mexico and, going to different therapies down there with Ibogaine. And it was kind of this big eye opener. You've got all these guys that, they're, for all intents and purposes, they're struggling because of what they did fighting for the country. Mm-hmm. And then here the country owes it to them to try to fix them, but they won't. Instead, they have to go to another country to try to get that aid. And I know I've seen commercials, talking about that, but it's a true thing, right? You talked about it. You think the country, like they like the government owes it to the guys and gals, right?
Yeah.
They went over there, and if there's something that we possess that can fix them, we owe it to them, right? And we should allow them to try it. And then the other thought behind it is, once you're fixed, these are fixable things.
Yeah.
Now you've got a great dude, great gal to give a new purpose to, right? So, yeah, I'm with you on that. I think we need to keep what we're doing, keep opening up our options.
Yeah.
And like you said, the vet bros, they're out doing it, and then they're putting it out there. They're saying, this is what's working for me.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what this show's about, right? Is what's working for you, and how can I get it to the next person that needs it?
Yeah. And it's just getting over the stigma, like you're talking about the Schedule 3 drug, like it's an hallucinogenic, but it can be medicine. It's been medicine for the people in Latin America for centuries.
Yeah, you talked about the tribes. You talked about the Eastern medicines and just the different ways. Ibogaine comes from a South African tribe in Gabon. They've been using this for hundreds of years. Yeah. Maybe thousands of years, right? So this isn't new. It's just new to us.
New to us, yeah.
But you talked about other militaries, the way that they treat for PTS, and they start early on, and so their warfighters aren't having the same issues. Yeah. So and it's not to say that everything we're doing is wrong. It's just if it's not working, it's not working. We got to try something else, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because the wars aren't going to end. Not in our generation, right? I mean, we still need guys that are going to be able to go protect and fight and put it all on the line for us. But we owe it to them when they're done.
Yeah, because who's going to want to sign up for the military when they see, what are you're not going to take care of this guy, but you want us to go to war, and fight for us, for your country, and then, you're just going to leave them hanging and flat.
Yeah. No, and that's why I think this podcast is important, because we're both advocates still for the military. Like,
oh yeah.
I mean, the Army saved my life. I love the military. My son's in the military now. Mm-hmm. And so we still advocate for it because it did do what it was supposed to. It took care of me, and it's still taking care of me. And as we find these options, we find these new things, it's all we're doing is advancing it. So. Yeah.
And I'm not saying they don't do anything. Obviously I've been supported like crazy, but but I'm cut and dry. It's the guys that don't have the visible wounds that get overlooked and that get, poo-pooed or, oh no, you're fine, or it's just, it'll wear off. But like I said, the VA, they do what they can. The shortfalls there. Yes, we all know that. But like there's a civilian network of, charities and former warriors and war fighters that have kind of picked up the mantle, I guess, or picked up, the ball where they can't do stuff. And like you said, explored these things.
Yeah.
Because there's things that I don't know about. And then I talk to somebody else and I'm like, oh, that sounds good. I'm going to try that. But because there is that one thing I'm still looking to fix. I feel like I'm pretty good. I had a surgery about 6 years ago to have, prosthetics implanted in my legs or implanted in my femur so I can walk again. And that's going amazing. I didn't know about it until I talked to, I think it was another vet.
Yeah.
And because I didn't know that was an option.
Well, I know. So Ben Harrow, he does. Ben.
Mm-hmm.
So he was supposed to come on the show. He may still. Ben, you need to come on the show. But anyway, he does his own podcast now, and I know with him, his legs were sheared so high up in his femurs, they had to grow the femur bones in order to be able to fit a prosthetics on him.
Yep.
And that was the first time that they had done that. They'd grown. There had been, I guess history or whatever of growing the lower leg bone, right, tib fib.
Yep.
But as far as the femur, they'd never tried that until with Ben Harrow, right? And I guess they were able to grow one of them like 6 inches.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah.
I think I was up at Walter Reed around the same. Well, I've been in and out, but I remember meeting him. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And so again, it's the conversations. It's doctors being willing to. Hey man, that hasn't been done before, but it makes sense. Let's push through. And
those orthopedic doctors are like the fact that they can reconstruct our muscles and legs to give us function, and knowing that we're going to use prosthetics. So they try to conserve as much as possible with bone and muscle and give us muscle movement, because like I can twiddle my fingers. I don't have fingers, but those muscles are still there.
You still feel them.
And that's what I use when I have a electronic arm, I use that to open and close my hand, which I'm waiting on getting another one. But they have the forethought to put us back together in a certain way that they know is going to function well. Then they've learned that over time. But like you're talking about with Ben, extending his bone, just to give more structure. I remember somebody doing that. It might have been him doing the bone extension, because we had talked about it, because I'm kind of short as well. Because we just have, it's called suspension. There's, they use suction. You put on a sleeve over your leg, and then you put the leg on over that, and it just sucks to it.
Okay.
So you'll be walking. I've walked before, and then all of a sudden, boom, the leg just comes off. Whereas now, they're attached to a metal rod in my leg, and I ain't going anywhere.
Okay.
So, it's taken a long time for me to get up and walk and to overcome the pain, because there's a lot of bone pain, and it's just something you can't explain. You'd walk for a day, and then your legs just hurt for about 4. And then you just have to kind of work and work and work day after day and keep pushing through that pain, because it's not a muscle. It's like you can go work out your muscle, you know,
and it'll build,
and then you'll get sore, and then, you know, the soreness goes away, and then you're building. But with the bone, it's just, I don't know what the heck's going on in there. So you just got to go at your own pace and take your time. Because there's some guys that had the surgery that I had, and they get up and start walking like it, you know, it's good to go. But I just struggled with it for so long.
Is there some sort of like shock absorber? Like as you talk about that bone on metal contact, right? It seems like, you know, almost like a vehicle, right? Like you got to have that shock to absorb.
Yeah, there's no. The only shock absorption is probably my foot and my shoe, and it's just whatever I step on or whatever I, you know, hit, it goes right in. Yeah, yep. And it can be painful at times, but they said if I didn't have this surgery, I'd still be in a wheelchair. I'd be probably about 230 pounds, and you know, it's the fact that I actually did the surgery was pretty surprising to me, but because I had almost given up on walking. But when I heard about it, I was like, all right, well, let's try it, and you know, maybe it'll work for me. Maybe it won't, but it didn't work for me in the beginning. But after just kind of, you know, getting a hold of myself and just saying, hey, we're going to do this, you know, because it's a painful process, you know, got out of the wheelchair. And I use a wheelchair at home for like showering and other stuff. But for the most part, I walk every day, and, you know, I feel strong, feel good. You know, I'm out, you know, going to parties, meeting people, and just, you know, not feeling so sorry for myself. Not that I ever really did, but it's just being in a wheelchair is pretty rough. And, you know, the fact that I can walk and that I'm at this ability to walk, I can go to like Disney and Universal and walk all day. Amazing, and, man. You know, it's to show my kids that, you know, you can overcome these things in life that, you know, whether it's small or big. You know, people will come up to me and they're like, oh, well, I had a broken arm, or I had, you know, my wrist, this and that, and it's nothing compared to what you have. I know, but it's all relative. It's devastating to you. You know, obviously mine was a bigger situation, but I still have empathy for that person. Sure. Because, you know, they're telling me about it. But it's all relative. You know, if you broke your wrist and you're a tennis player, that's devastating. Or just, there's little things that people think that it's just a little thing, but it can be, you know, detrimental in their life.
Give you a certain amount of empathy for situations.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, so out in town, you come across a family, little kids. You see little kids looking. What is your advice to parents who, you know, I'm out there with my son, my little daughter sees you and she wants to point, she wants to be curious, she wants to know what happened. Yeah. What is your advice for us parents? Are you open to like, hey, send your kid over, tell them come talk to me?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Because there's a lot of times I've seen kids get smacked on the head. I seen them getting pulled over. You can't say that. Don't say that. And I'm like, no. I'm like, they're curious. They want to come over and touch. They want to touch my legs. They're like, oh, you have robot legs. And they're curious beings, and they don't have that filter that adults have. And let them explore. And if I wasn't out in public, or if I'm out in public, I'm not wanting that, but I welcome it when it happens. Otherwise, if I didn't want people to talk to me or come and ask me about it, I wouldn't leave my house. If that was a problem mentally with me, I wouldn't go out in public. That the opportunity for somebody to come over and touch me, or a child, and I get pissed off about it, I can't operate in society. I wouldn't leave the house. So if I'm out and about, ask away, because I'm happy to tell the kids about it. And I don't lie to them. I tell them I got hurt a long time ago. I got hurt in war, and I got blown. I stepped on a bomb. And, you know, most kids, they don't process it, or they don't really know about war necessarily. Yeah. But, you know, they've seen TV, or they've seen cartoons, or they've seen whatever. They know what a bomb is.
Sure.
But, you know, I always want to make up, you know, something funny or, you know, shark attack or something. But most of the time I'm just real with them because, like I said, if I was offended by people saying things like that, I wouldn't leave the house.
Do you appreciate the opportunity to educate?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So
it's kind of the opposite then. Like you said, you don't necessarily, I mean, you don't go out because you want people to come, but you do appreciate the opportunity to talk to people.
Yeah. No, I've had like vets come up to me crying and, you know, want to hug me. Yeah. And they're like, I just want to hug you. And I'm like, okay, I got no problem. You know, if it helps him, then, because he's still going through some stuff.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's just, I do welcome it. You know, there's some days where I just want to go to the grocery store and get out and get my stuff and go.
Yeah.
And there are some times that I just, you know, I don't mind people talking to me, but it's, I feel it's my part. I do my part, like you said, to educate. You know, there's a lot of people don't see a person like me every day. And there's a lot of amputees in this town, like in this area. So there's people that come up to me and they're like, yeah, I'm just like you. And they'll tap their leg at, like, you know, below their knee or something like that. Sometimes I can tell, but, you know, sometimes they just want to let you know that, you know, they're an amputee as well, which is kind of cool. It's kind of like not a brotherhood, but a network. And it's a support network.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Man. You know, we talk about kids being analytical, and that's such an important part of life. And we as parents, we try to get them out of that analytical stage really early on. I think too early, where it's like we want to correct, we want to filter them, we want to, no, you can't say that.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, little kids, they're where it's at, right? Ask the hard questions.
Ask the hard questions.
Because they'll notice things and they won't be afraid to ask the question.
Yeah.
We as adults, we notice things and we pretend like we don't.
We're just because we're afraid of offending that person with whatever whatever we notice or anything like that. Or just, it could be anything really, but we're just afraid to hurt somebody else's feelings. And that's where children are they don't have that they have the ability to do it, but they just don't, because they're learning everything around them. And when they see something different, they're just all about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. And we can't stifle that. We just need to, and like my kids, they're around this stuff all the time.
Sure.
You know, guys broken in all different manners, and they have a totally different perspective, you know, of life. I would hope, and of humanity. And I've seen it rub off on my son and my daughter. I feel like they're really good members of society already, and
I'm sure.
And it's I'm proud of it, because I'm such an outgoing person most of the time. But when they see me interact with other people, and I hope it's like a positive influence on them.
Yeah, I mean, how could it not be? You're still here, still getting after it, man, and that just shows volumes. One thing I wanted to ask you, and this was back during your 5-day coma.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you go? Do you have any recollection? Was there any memory of
No.
when you're in that coma? And I ask because there's people that kind of study that, and I'm wondering if you met our creator.
No. I wish I would have had an experience like that, but it was just, you don't remember. It's just like, I mean, I guess it was darkness, but I don't know what state of brain activity I had at the time. So, you know, it's just, I don't remember anything that would specifically that I could point out. But no, that's a good question. No, it's because like when people have a near death, I didn't feel like I was near death. I never felt like I was going to die. That was a kind of a mindset that was ingrained in me, I guess. But I never thought I was, like, at any time I thought I was going to die. Weird, but you know, even when they were working on me and I wanted to go to sleep, I never felt like I was going to die. Never came across my mind. And that's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
That is weird. But
So you never went into any kind of panic or any, just,
no,
wow.
I wasn't like, oh man, I'm going to, cause I really didn't know the extent of the damage. And I thought my guys were going to take care, I knew everything that was there that was going to take care of me as far as, their training. But I mean, when I passed out on the helicopter, whether it was chemically induced or if it was me just passing out, that could have been it. That could have been the last time I was awake.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Obviously, it wasn't.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in that mindset. So maybe not being in that mindset, like I'm going, this is it.
And you mentioned they woke you up once in launch stool.
Yeah.
And you remember seeing the light and the white room. And so that kind of just.
Yeah, I know. I know what you were saying, but there was people's voices that I knew that were there and I heard them. So I knew I wasn't dead. Like it really never, that's funny you asked that question because I never thought of anything like that. Whereas like, was I having that moment? And looking back, I really didn't. And it's kind of crazy. But like, again, I just never thought I was going to die. That's crazy. I never really thought about that until now.
Wow.
Because like I said, I wasn't saying, tell my wife that I love her. I just never said that. I guess I just hung on.
You just knew?
I just knew. I guess I knew that it wasn't my time. I mean, looking back on it, I guess that's what it was, but like, that's crazy. They have epiphanies all the time around here, I guess.
Right.
But it's just never had that feeling like I was going to die. I had to say it again because I don't believe it. That's weird. No, I don't know. It's goofy.
Wow. Joe, your story's incredible, man. And I know there's a ton of stuff that we could talk about.
Yeah.
What do you have that, kind of that last thing that you want to give out to the audience, man? I mean, what's your like, if I'm going to hold on to anything forever, it's this.
It's probably the never quit, never give up attitude. It's just, I think it's been instilled in me probably since, football, but it's just never give up. I mean, it's so simple it's so easy just to say, screw this, I'm done.
Yeah.
The hard part is working through the hardships in life and the demons in your head to get up every morning, see the sunrise, put your feet on the floor, and just never give up, because life is so hard. It's so hard, and people are dealing with so many things these days, and they just want to give up, whether it's money or other hardships. It's and it's not like I wear a t-shirt that says never give up or never quit, but I hope when people look at me, they can see that I haven't, I've stuck to that, because I mean, it's not a mantra, a motto or anything like that, but it is something that I probably do live by. It's never give up.
Dude, I mean, it's as simple as it sounds, right? It's just one foot in front of the other, just 1 minute, 1 day, 1 hour, whatever that looks like. Just don't give up, and reaching out to people too, having a network of guys that you can reach out to is obviously going to be helpful. Yeah.
Oh yeah, just having friends and just being able to reach out to people anytime I can. I try to, but I can reach out to anybody on the street, because anybody on the street is my friend. So it's kind of goofy and crazy, but I always see everybody as a friend, and they've always got something good to say, or I've got something good to say to them. So
that's awesome, man. All right, brother. I think we'll go ahead and wrap this up then.
Sounds good.
What an awesome story, man. Again, I can't thank you enough for for coming out here.
Well, I appreciate it.
When we do get your book finished, it's an open invitation.
It's got to start before it can finish.
Well, this will be the start to
it. Catalyst, yeah.
Well, Joe, thank you so much, man. I know, our viewers are going to love this story, and just your energy, your good attitude about everything, man. I mean, you've been through so much, and you come out on top each time. And I appreciate you coming out, man. And to everybody at home, if you got something out of this, please, send it out, help us share it, and hang in there. Cheers.